My mother called 4 times during my graduate seminar before dropping the bomb that she had withdrawn me from the university. I am 26 years old, self-funded, and independent. Yet in 60 minutes, she transformed me into a mental crisis patient on official records. She has no idea that if the administration follows her advice, they will have to explain why they just expelled the person who signed their largest check of the decade. My name is Isla Mitchell, and at that specific moment, I was trying to understand the differential equation, Doctor, Evans had scrawled across the whiteboard of the lecture hall. The room smelled of dry erase markers and damp wool, a scent that usually grounded me. I was 26 years old, a doctoral candidate in mechanical and energy engineering at Redwood Lakes University in Ohio, and I had spent the last 4 years carefully constructing a life that had absolutely nothing to do with the people who shared my DNA. The phone in my pocket buzzed against my thigh. I ignored it. I sat in the second row, my spine pressed against the hard plastic of the chair, staring at the derivation for convective heat transfer coefficients. The phone buzzed again, long, insistent vibrations that seemed to rattle my entire skeleton. I shifted my leg, trying to dampen the sound, keeping my eyes fixed forward. It stopped. I exhaled, picking up my pen to copy the diagram. Then it started again, a third time. The girl sitting to my right shifted in her seat, shooting a glance at my pocket. I felt the heat rise up the back of my neck. I reached down surreptitiously and blindly hammered the volume button to silence it, hoping it would go to voicemail. It stopped for 3 seconds. Then it started for the 4th time. Doctor. Evans stopped writing. He did not turn around immediately. He just held the marker in midair, the silence in the room suddenly heavier than the lecture itself. Then he turned. Peering over his spectacles, he looked directly at me. "Is there an emergency, Ms. Mitchell?" he asked, his voice mild but echoing in the quiet room. Because if not, I would appreciate it if the rest of us could continue with the laws of thermodynamics. Humiliation, hot and sharp, pricked at my eyes. I grabbed my backpack. "I am so sorry," I whispered. I stood up, fumbling with the strap, and squeezed past the knees of the other students in my row. I could feel their eyes on me, a mixture of annoyance and pity. I pushed through the heavy double doors into the hallway. The corridor was empty, lined with gray lockers and bulletin boards covered in internship flyers. The air was cooler here. I pulled my phone out. The screen lit up with a name that made my stomach tighten. Mom. I slid the icon over to answer, anger already bubbling in my throat. "Mom, I am in class. You cannot call me 4 times in a row unless someone is literally dying. I have told you this." "You are not in class anymore," Tracy Caldwell said. Her voice was not frantic. It was not the voice of someone reporting a death or a fire. It was calm, chillingly steady, with that familiar undercurrent of steel that she used when she had decided how the world was going to work. I stopped walking. "What are you talking about?" "I just got off the phone with the administration," she said. "I have withdrawn you from the university. Pack your things. Isla. I am coming to get you tomorrow morning." The words did not make sense. It was like she was speaking a different language. I laughed, a short, incredulous sound that bounced off the linoleum floor. "You withdrew me? Mom, I am 26 years old. I am a graduate student. You cannot just call a university and withdraw an adult student. That is not how the world works. It is how it works when I'm listed as your emergency contact and next of kin," she replied effortlessly. I told them the truth. I told them you are having a severe mental health crisis. I told them you are unstable, that I have received disturbing messages from you, and that the family needs to intervene immediately for your own safety. The blood drained from my face so fast I felt dizzy. I leaned against the wall, the cold cinder blocks seeping through my sweater. "You did what?" "Do not raise your voice at me," she snapped. "I did what I had to do. They were very understanding. Dean Voss's office was very concerned. They agreed that an immediate medical withdrawal was in your best interest. They are processing the paperwork now." "There is nothing wrong with me," I shouted, no longer caring if the class inside could hear. I have a 4.0 GPA. I am teaching 2 labs. You lied to them. It is not a lie if it saves you from yourself, she said, her tone shifting into that martyr complex I knew so well. You have been distant, Isla, obsessive with this work, isolating yourself. It is textbook depression. I am busy. It is a PhD program. And it is over, she cut in. Cole needs you. The silence that followed that name was thick and suffocating. Cole, my older brother, the golden boy who could not keep a job for more than 6 months, the visionary who had burned through 3 separate loans from our parents, the man who was 30 years old and still waiting for the world to hand him a crown. There it is, I said, my voice shaking. This is not about my mental health. This is about Cole. He is launching Ridgecrest Concepts next month, Tracy said, her voice brightening as if we were discussing a holiday dinner and not the demolition of my academic career. It is a massive opportunity, Isla, but the investors are demanding rigorous bookkeeping. They need someone to handle the back end, the contracts, the compliance. Cole is the creative mind. He cannot be bogged down with paperwork. He specifically asked for you. He said, Isla is the only one I trust with the numbers. I am not an accountant, I gritted out, my hand gripping the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. I am an energy engineer. I am not leaving my doctorate to file Cole's tax returns. You are selfish, she hissed. The switch was instant. The caring mother vanished, replaced by the woman who had spent my entire childhood telling me I took up too much space. Your brother is on the verge of something great, and you are playing around with solar panels in Ohio. We have supported you for years. Isla, it is time you paid your debts. You have not supported me since I was 18, I said. I pay my own rent. I pay my own tuition. I pay for my own food. You have no right to do this. It is already done, Tracy said. The registrar has the file. The medical hold is active. If you try to fight it, you will just prove how unstable you are. Imagine how that looks. Isla, a hysterical girl screaming that her mother is lying? Who do you think they will believe? The concerned mother calling from 2 states away, or the stressed-out student who looks like she has not slept in a week? She was right about one thing. I had not slept much, but that was because I was finalizing a grant proposal, not because I was losing my mind. I am not coming home, I said quietly. I will be there at 10 in the morning, she said. Have your apartment packed, or do I need to call your landlord too? I am sure I could explain the situation to him. The threat hung in the air. She would do it. She would burn my entire life to the ground if it meant keeping Cole warm. Do not come here, I said. See you tomorrow. Sweetie, she said, and she hung up. I stared at the phone. The screen went black, reflecting my own face back at me, pale, wide-eyed, terrified. For a moment, I just stood there in the empty hallway. The sheer audacity of it paralyzed me. It felt like I had been driving down a highway at 70 miles per hour, and someone had reached over and yanked the steering wheel. She had weaponized the university's safety protocols against me. She had turned the system designed to protect students into a cage. Then the paralysis broke. I shoved the phone into my pocket and started to run. I did not go back into the classroom for my bag. I did not care about the notebook I was leaving behind. I hit the double doors of the engineering building and burst out into the biting Ohio winter air. The wind hit my face like a slap, sharp and sobering. I had to get to the administration building. I had to get to the registrar before this solidified, before the medical hold locked me out of my email, my student ID, my lab access. In the digital age, you could cease to exist as a person in minutes. I sprinted across the quad. My boots slammed against the concrete. Students were walking leisurely to their next classes, wrapped in scarves and puffer coats, holding coffee cups. They looked so normal. They lived in a world where mothers did not sabotage their children's futures to service their brothers' egos. My lungs burned. I cut across the snowy lawn, bypassing the paved walkways. To my left, the imposing structure of the new science wing loomed over the campus. Hartwell Innovation Hall. I slowed down for just a fraction of a second as I passed it. It was a masterpiece of modern architecture: glass and steel, sustainable timber, solar-integrated roofing. It was the crown jewel of Redwood Lakes University. Everyone on campus knew the name Hartwell. It was synonymous with the anonymous donor who had poured millions into the school specifically for clean energy research. My mother saw that building as a symbol of the wealth she felt she had been denied. Cole saw it as the kind of legacy he deserved without working for it. They saw a building. I saw a secret. I looked at the massive bronze letters mounted on the stone facade. Hartwell. A surge of adrenaline, hotter and stronger than the fear, flooded my veins. My mother thought she was maneuvering a helpless student. She thought she was bullying her 26-year-old daughter who still sought her approval. She had no idea she had just declared war on the entity that effectively owned the heating system she was standing in. I tore my eyes away from the building and picked up my pace. The administration building was an old brick fortress at the top of the hill. I took the steps 2 at a time, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I yanked the heavy oak door open and stumbled into the warmth of the lobby. It was quiet inside, the smell of floor wax and old paper, the hushed atmosphere of bureaucracy. I marched past the student workers at the front desk. Ignoring their polite, "Can I help you?" I went straight to the frosted glass door marked Office of the Registrar. I didn't knock. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was a hive of cubicles and filing cabinets. A few heads turned. At the main counter, a woman with reading glasses on a chain looked up, startled by my sudden entrance. She looked like the gatekeeper of all things official, stern, tired, and unamused. I walked up to the counter. I placed my hands flat on the cool laminate surface to stop them from shaking. I needed to sound sane. I needed to sound authoritative. I needed to sound like I was not the hysterical girl my mother had described. I took a deep breath, looked the woman dead in the eye, and spoke clearly. "My name is Isla Mitchell," I said. "Someone is impersonating me. I need to stop it now." The woman behind the counter was named Brenda. I knew this because her name tag was clipped lopsidedly to a cardigan that had seen better days, and because I had spent enough time in this building navigating grant paperwork to recognize the permanent staff. Brenda had typed my name with the mechanical indifference of someone who had done this 10,000 times. Click, clack, enter, then her hand stopped. It was a subtle freeze, the kind you might miss if you were not staring at her fingers with the intensity of a bomb defusal expert. Her shoulders stiffened. She leaned forward, squinting at the monitor, and then she did something that made the bile rise in my throat. She angled the screen away from me. "Is there a problem?" I asked. My voice sounded thin, stretched tight over the panic drumming in my chest. Brenda did not look at me. She picked up the landline phone on her desk, her back turning slightly to block my view. "Ms. Price?" "Yes. She is here at the counter. Right now?" "Yes, ma'am. I will bring her back." She hung up and finally looked at me. The annoyance was gone from her face, replaced by a guarded, almost nervous expression. It was the look you give a ticking package that has been left in a public lobby. "Ms. Mitchell," she said, her voice dropping an octave. "The registrar needs to see you in her office. Immediately." She buzzed the gate open. I walked through the swinging half door, crossing the boundary from student to problem. The back office was a maze of beige cubicles and towering filing cabinets, the air thick with the smell of toner and dust. Heads turned as I passed. I could feel their eyes. In a university administrative office. You only got escorted to the back for 2 reasons. You were in serious trouble, or you were a tragedy. My mother had managed to paint me as both. Brenda stopped at a heavy oak door at the corner of the suite and knocked once before pushing it open. "Ms. Price?" Naomi Price was a legend in the administrative wing. She had been the university registrar for 20 years, a woman with iron-gray hair cut in a sharp bob and eyes that could spot a forged transcript from across the room. She was sitting behind a desk that looked more like a fortress, covered in neat stacks of manila folders. "Thank you. Brenda, close the door." Naomi did not smile. She gestured to the leather chair opposite her. Sit down, Ms. Mitchell. I sat. My hands were trembling, so I gripped the armrests. Ms. Price, I do not know what my mother told you, but she held up a hand. The gesture was absolute. Let us look at the screen. Isla. She turned her monitor so I could see it. It was my student profile, but across the top, flashing in a bright, violent red banner, were words that made my vision blur. Withdrawal pending. Medical incapacity. Status, inactive. At 9:15 this morning, Naomi said, her voice dry and precise, we received a request through your secure student portal to initiate an immediate medical withdrawal. The request was accompanied by uploaded PDF documents claiming you have suffered a severe psychotic break and have been deemed a danger to yourself, requiring immediate custodial care by your next of kin. I stared at the screen. The words psychotic break seemed to pulse. It was so specific, so calculated. It was the one diagnosis that would justify removing my autonomy. I am right here, I said, my voice shaking. I am obviously not in a psychotic break. I was in class. I am teaching labs. You cannot process this. The request came from your account. Isla, Naomi said gently but firmly. It was logged in with your username and your password. The IP address is from out of state. Yes, but the user successfully navigated the two-step verification using the backup security questions when the mobile push failed. I felt the blood drain from my face. She answered the security questions? Naomi nodded. She tapped a key, bringing up the log. Mother's maiden name. Name of your first pet. The make and model of your first car. The city where your father was born. All answered correctly on the first attempt. A chill went down my spine that had nothing to do with the temperature of the room. It was a violation so intimate it felt physical. Those questions were the keys to my digital identity, and of course she knew them. She was my mother. She had bought the dog. She had bought the car. She had not hacked the system with code. She had hacked it with shared history. She had weaponized my childhood to delete my adulthood. That is fraud, I said. She used my credentials without my permission. That is identity theft. You have to cancel it. It is not that simple, Naomi said. She clasped her hands on the desk. The documents she uploaded include a signed affidavit from a physician, dated yesterday, stating you are medically unfit to make decisions. When we have a document like that, coupled with a request from the student's own account, the university is legally obligated to pause your status to protect you, liability-wise. We cannot have a student wandering campus who has been flagged as medically incapacitated. The doctor is fake, I snapped, leaning forward. Or she bought him. I have not seen a doctor in 6 months except for a flu shot. Ms. Price, look at me. I am a doctoral candidate. I am 26. You cannot let my mother drag me out of here because she wants me to do her bookkeeping. Naomi paused. Her sharp eyes scanned my face, looking for the cracks, looking for the hysteria my mother had promised. She saw fear. Yes, anger, absolutely. But she did not see a break from reality. She said you would say that, Naomi said softly. She noted in the comments section that you would likely deny the diagnosis and claim it was a conspiracy. That is a common symptom of the condition she described. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. That is convenient, isn't it? If I fight back, I am crazy. If I submit, I am gone. It is a perfect trap. I took a deep breath, forcing my engineer's brain to take over. Panic was useless. I needed data. I needed protocol. Ms. Price, I said, leveling my voice. Under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, my educational records are mine alone. I am revoking any and all permissions for third-party access effective immediately. I am formally stating that my account has been compromised. I am requesting an immediate freeze on this withdrawal and a flag on my file that requires in-person identification with a government-issued ID for any future changes. No online portals, no phone calls, flesh and blood only. Naomi looked at me for a long moment. I could see the gears turning. She was weighing the risk. On one side, a frantic mother with medical papers. On the other, a lucid student citing federal privacy laws. Finally, she nodded. I can do that. I will place a hard lock on the file right now. We will require a notarized affidavit from you stating the previous request was fraudulent before we can purge it. But I can stop the withdrawal process from finalizing. She began typing rapidly. I am adding a note. Student asserts identity theft. In-person verification only. I exhaled, my shoulders sagging. Thank you. Please, just make sure she cannot get back in. Isla, Naomi said, stopping her typing. She did not look at the screen this time. She looked at me with an expression that terrified me more than the red banner had. It was pity. Blocking the portal is the easy part, but you need to know what is happening upstairs. Upstairs? Your mother is not just on the portal, Naomi said. She has been on the phone with the dean's office for the last 20 minutes. She was transferred up after she started threatening the frontline staff with a lawsuit. A lawsuit? She is claiming that the university is harboring a mentally ill student and enabling self-destructive behavior by not releasing you to her care, Naomi said. She told the receptionist she has already drafted a press release for the local papers about how Redwood Lakes ignores the mental health crises of its graduate students to protect its tuition revenue. She is demanding to speak to Dean Voss personally. My stomach dropped. A press release. My mother knew exactly where to hit. The university was terrified of bad press, especially anything related to student mental health. If she spun a story about a negligent university refusing to let a sick girl go home to her loving family, the administration would fold just to make the headline go away. She is blowing it up, I whispered. She is burning the house down to get me out. She is currently on hold with the dean's executive assistant, Naomi said. She stood up. I need to go up there and explain that the incapacitated student is currently sitting in my office quoting FERPA regulations. You should come with me. To the dean's office? If you want to stop this. They need to see you. Naomi said, they need to see that you are not the person she is describing on the phone. We need to kill this narrative before the dean picks up that line. I stood up. My legs felt heavy, but the anger was a hot, propelling force in my back. Let's go. We left the registrar's office and walked to the elevators. The ride up to the 4th floor was silent. When the doors opened, the atmosphere changed instantly. The scuffed linoleum of the lower floors was replaced by plush, navy blue carpeting that swallowed the sound of our footsteps. The lighting was warmer, softer, emanating from recessed fixtures rather than buzzing fluorescent tubes. The walls were lined with oil paintings of past presidents and donors. This was the seat of power. This was where the decisions were made that steered the hundreds of millions of dollars flowing through the university, and my mother was trying to scream her way into it. Naomi led the way, her heels sinking into the carpet. We approached the double mahogany doors of the dean's suite. The waiting area was elegant, with leather armchairs and a polished coffee table, but the tension in the air was razor-sharp. The executive assistant's desk was empty. The assistant, a woman I recognized as Marianne Voss, no relation to the dean, just a terrifyingly efficient gatekeeper, was standing by the inner door, a headset pressed to her ear. Her face was tight, her lips pressed into a thin line. She was listening. Naomi caught Marianne's eye and gestured to me. Marianne's eyes widened slightly. She held up a finger, signaling us to wait. The inner door to the conference room was cracked open just an inch. Through the gap, and amplified by the speakerphone setting that must have been active on the desk unit, I heard it. I heard her voice. It was not the cold, steel voice she had used with me an hour ago. It was not the bullying voice. It was a masterpiece of performance art. It was shaking, wet with tears, trembling with the heartbreaking desperation of a mother at her wit's end. I am begging you, my mother's voice sobbed through the speaker, echoing into the expensive quiet of the suite. I just want my daughter back. She is not herself, If something happens to her because you people won't let me help her, if she hurts herself, that blood is on your hands. I have the medical records. Why are you keeping her from me?" I stood frozen on the thick carpet. It was terrifying. If I did not know her, if I did not know that she had been calculating interest rates and business contracts in the same breath an hour ago, I would have believed her. I would have given her anything she wanted. Naomi looked at me, her eyebrows raised, silently asking, "Are you ready for this?" I looked at the door. I listened to the woman who had given birth to me use her tears to construct a prison cell around my life. I realized then that this was not just a misunderstanding. It was not just a controlling parent having a bad day. This was a hostile takeover. She wasn't just trying to withdraw me from school. She was trying to liquidate my credibility. She was trying to bankrupt my personhood so she could acquire my assets. I nodded to Naomi. Marianne saw the nod. She did not hang up. She simply reached out and pushed the heavy mahogany door all the way open. My mother's voice stopped mid-sob. I stepped into the doorway, locking eyes with the dean, who was hovering over the speakerphone looking panicked. "Hello?" I said, my voice cutting through the lingering echo of my mother's performance. "I believe you are speaking to the woman who just impersonated me." The office of the assistant dean was a study in intimidation disguised as hospitality. The walls were painted a soft, creamy white that probably cost more per gallon than my entire wardrobe, and the windows offered a panoramic view of the snow-dusted quad below. But the focal point of the room was Marianne Voss. She stood behind a desk made of glass and chrome, a stark contrast to the heavy wood of the outer office. She was a woman who looked like she had been carved out of marble and dressed in Italian wool. Her hair was pulled back into a severe chignon, not a single strand out of place, and her expression was one of bored lethargy, the look of someone who managed crises for breakfast and found this particular crisis distasteful. She was holding the receiver of her landline phone about 6 inches away from her ear. Even from the doorway, I could hear the tinny, distorted shrieking coming from the speaker. It was a sound that made the fine hairs on my arms stand up. It was the sound of my childhood. It was the sound of a woman who believed that volume was a substitute for truth. "She is having a breakdown!" Tracy screamed. The voice was so loud it seemed to vibrate against the glass desktop. "I have the medical history. I have the authority. You people are negligent. If my daughter hurts herself because you refuse to release her to her family, I will own that university by the time the lawyers are done with you. Do you hear me? I will own every brick." Naomi Price stepped further into the room, clearing her throat. Marianne Voss did not flinch. She simply turned her eyes toward us. Her gaze swept over Naomi, acknowledging her presence with a microscopic nod, and then landed on me. I braced myself. I expected the same look I had received from the registrar's clerk. Confusion, suspicion, perhaps a little bit of fear. I expected her to look at me and see a liability. But that is not what I saw. Marianne's eyes narrowed, but not in suspicion. It was recognition. It was the kind of sharp, assessing look a banker gives a high-value client who has just walked in unannounced. She looked at my boots, wet with melting snow. She looked at my cheap parka. She looked at my face, pale and set in grim determination, and then, very slowly, she brought the phone back to her ear. "Mrs. Caldwell," Marianne said. Her voice was smooth, cool, and utterly devoid of empathy. It was a voice that stopped the screaming on the other end instantly, simply by being so aggressively calm. "You are listening to me," Tracy panted on the other end. "Good. Now, I want you to—" "I am listening," Marianne interrupted. "But I'm afraid the situation has changed significantly in the last 10 seconds. What are you talking about?" "You stated that your daughter, Isla Mitchell, is currently in a state of psychotic distress," Marianne said, her eyes locking onto mine. "You stated that she is non-communicative, dissociative, and a danger to herself. You stated that she is currently wandering the city, lost and confused. Yes, she is. God knows where she is." "Well," Marianne said, leaning back against the edge of her desk. That is strange, because Isla Mitchell is currently standing in my office. She is looking me in the eye. She appears to be perfectly upright, fully dressed, and remarkably calm given the circumstances. There was a pause on the line. It was a jagged, ugly silence. I could hear my mother's breathing. A harsh, static sound. "You are lying," Tracy spat out. "She is not there. She is hiding. That is not her. I can assure you, Mrs. Caldwell, my eyesight is 20/20. Marianne said. "And unless your daughter has a twin sister who is also pursuing a doctorate in mechanical engineering, the woman standing next to my registrar is indeed Isla." I stepped forward. I did not want to speak to my mother. I did not want to give her the satisfaction of hearing my voice shake, but I needed her to know that I was here, and that the game was changing. "I am here. Mom," I said loudly, directing my voice toward the phone. "And I am not coming home." The sound of my voice seemed to snap something in Tracy. The concerned mother act fractured, revealing the jagged edges of the control freak underneath. "You put her on the phone right now," Tracy screamed. "Isla, you listen to me. You are sick. You do not know what you are saying. Get in the car and come home before you ruin everything. Cole is waiting. We are all waiting." Marianne pulled the phone away again, wincing slightly at the volume. She looked at me, and for the first time, a small, wry smile touched her lips. It was a conspiratorial smile. It said, "I see exactly what this is." "Mrs. Caldwell," Marianne said, bringing the phone back. "Please lower your voice. You are shouting at an officer of the university." "I do not care who you are," Tracy yelled. "I am her mother. I am her emergency contact. I have rights. I am withdrawing her. I do not care if she is standing there or not. She is a minor in the eyes of her condition. You will process that paperwork, or I will bring the police to your campus and drag her out myself." I felt a cold shiver go through me. She would do it. She would actually call the police and claim I was insane just to get me into the car. She would humiliate me in front of the entire department if it meant getting what she wanted. "That will not be necessary," Marianne said. Her voice dropped lower, becoming even colder. "And frankly, Mrs. Caldwell, it will not be possible." "Excuse me? You cannot stop me. I pay her tuition. Actually," Marianne cut in, her voice sharpening like a blade. "You do not—" "What?" "You do not pay her tuition," Marianne said. "Isla Mitchell is fully funded through a doctoral fellowship, and furthermore, Mrs. Caldwell, you seem to be laboring under a significant misunderstanding regarding your daughter's standing at this institution." "She is a student," Tracy snapped. "She is just a student." "The problem," Marianne said, picking up a piece of paper from her desk, a paper I recognized as the donor briefing sheet usually reserved for the president of the university, "is that you are attempting to strong-arm the wrong person. You are not just trying to withdraw a graduate student, you are attempting to forcibly remove the university's biggest donor." The silence that followed was absolute. It wasn't just quiet, it was a vacuum. It was the sound of the air being sucked out of a room 300 miles away. I stood very still. I had never said those words out loud. I had never heard anyone say them out loud. For 3 years, since the day the lawyers had found me in that cramped coffee shop and told me about the Hartwell Trust, I had kept it a secret. I had buried it under layers of anonymity and legal shielding. I don't understand." Tracy's voice came back. It was smaller now. The shrillness had evaporated, replaced by a confused, stumbling tone. "Donor? Isla? She works as a teaching assistant. She makes $15 an hour." "Isla Mitchell," Marianne recited, reading from the sheet with the casual tone of someone reading a grocery list, "is the sole trustee of the Hartwell Family Trust. In the last 36 months, she has personally authorized the transfer of $4.8 million to Redwood Lakes University." I watched the phone. I imagined my mother's face. I imagined the color draining from her cheeks. I imagined the phone slipping in her sweaty grip. $4.8 million. It was a number so large it didn't sound real. It was more money than my parents had made in their entire lives combined. It was more money than Cole had lost in all his failed ventures. "That is impossible," Tracy whispered. "That is, she doesn't have money. She asks us for gas money." "She has also," Marianne continued, ignoring the interruption, "established 5 fully funded scholarships for underprivileged students in the engineering department. She funds the annual Renewable Energy Research Grant, and perhaps most significantly, she is the primary benefactor behind the Hartwell Innovation Hall. The building?" Tracy sounded like she was choking. "The big glass one?" "The big glass one," Marianne confirmed. "The one your daughter funded, the one she could likely have renamed the Tracy Caldwell is a Liar Center if she really wanted to." I bit my lip to keep from laughing. It was a hysterical, terrified urge, but it was there. "So you see the dilemma," Marianne said, her voice turning conversational again, but with a dangerous edge. "When you call my office and threaten to sue us for harboring a student, you are actually threatening the person who essentially paid for the chair I am sitting in. When you forge medical documents to claim she is incapacitated, you are claiming that the primary financial pillar of our engineering department is mentally unfit. That is a very serious allegation. Mrs. Caldwell, it is the kind of allegation that makes our board of trustees very, very nervous." I didn't know," Tracy stammered. "Isla, she never told you," Marianne finished. One wonders why. The power in the room had shifted so violently, I could almost feel the air pressure change. My mother was no longer the predator. She was the trespasser. She had walked into a lion's den thinking she was chasing a house cat. "Now," Marianne said, her tone snapping back to professional steel, "let us discuss the immediate future, because as I see it, we have a problem. You have accessed a secure university system using credentials that do not belong to you. You have submitted a withdrawal request under false pretenses. You have uploaded a medical document that, given Ms. Mitchell's current lucidity, I strongly suspect is a forgery." It was a misunderstanding," Tracy said quickly. Her voice was rising in pitch, the panic setting in. We were worried. Cole said she sounded sick. We just wanted her home." "Fraud," Marianne said. "Identity theft, unauthorized access to a federal education record, attempted forgery." "Wait," Tracy said. "Please. I am transferring this file, along with the recording of this call and the IP logs from the portal access, to the University Office of General Counsel," Marianne said. "They will be in touch with you regarding the no trespass order we are issuing for the entire campus. If you set foot on this property, you will be arrested. If you attempt to access Ms. Mitchell's accounts again, we will press federal charges for cybercrime." "You can't do that," Tracy shrieked, the fear finally overtaking the arrogance. "She is my daughter. Isla, tell them to stop." I looked at the phone. I thought about the 4 times she had called during class. I thought about the psychotic break she had invented. I thought about Cole, sitting at home, waiting for me to come back and clean up his mess so he could play CEO. "Isla!" Tracy screamed. "Speak to me!" I looked at Marianne and shook my head. "Ms. Mitchell is busy," Marianne said. "She has a class to get back to." And then, with a delicate, manicured finger, Marianne reached out and pressed the button that ended the call. Click. The silence that rushed back into the room was beautiful. It was thick and heavy, but it wasn't suffocating anymore. It felt like a shield. Marianne stood there for a moment, looking at the phone. Then she exhaled a long breath through her nose. She looked up at me. The intimidating mask slipped just a fraction, revealing a woman who was tired, but impressed. $4.8 million, Marianne said softly. "And you let her scream at you for not coming home to do bookkeeping?" "I didn't want them to know," I said. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. "If they knew, they wouldn't just want the money. They would want the credit. They would want the control." I looked at the donor sheet on her desk. It listed my name next to the Hartwell Trust. It was a secret I had kept since I was 23, when a distant, eccentric great-aunt on my father's side, a woman the family had shunned for being difficult, had passed away and left everything to the only relative who had ever written her a thank-you note. Me. My parents thought Aunt Evelyn died penniless. They didn't know she had invested in early tech stocks in the 90s. They didn't know she had watched how they treated me, how they favored Cole, and had written her will with the specific intention of giving me a weapon they couldn't touch. She wasn't trying to withdraw me because of my mental health, I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. And she wasn't just trying to get me home for Cole's business. I looked at Naomi, then at Marianne. She answered the security questions, I said. She knew the answers, but she didn't know about the money, not yet. If she had succeeded, Naomi said quietly, if she had gotten you declared medically incompetent, she would have become your legal guardian. I nodded slowly. And as my guardian, she would have gained access to my assets. She would have found the trust. The room seemed to spin. It wasn't just a controlling mother. It was a heist. It was a subconscious, instinctual heist. Tracy didn't know about the millions, but she smelled power, and she couldn't stand that I had it. If she had dragged me home, if she had medicated me, if she had locked me in my childhood bedroom, she would have eventually dug through my papers. She would have found the bank statements, and then the $4.8 million wouldn't be building labs. It would be funding Cole's concepts. It would be buying vacation homes. It would be gone. She wanted to execute a hostile takeover of my life, I whispered. Marianne walked around the desk. She didn't hug me. She wasn't that kind of person. But she stood close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume. Well, Marianne said, it appears she failed, but Ms. Mitchell, a woman who is willing to forge a doctor's signature to get what she wants, is not going to stop just because I hung up on her. I know, I said. She is going to call back. She is going to call my father. She is going to call everyone. Then we need to be ready, Marianne said. Ms. Price, lock that file down. I want it so secure that God himself would need 2 forms of ID to see her grades. Done, Naomi said. And Isla, Marianne said, looking me dead in the eye. You need to stop thinking like a graduate student who is afraid of her mother. You are the trustee of the Hartwell Fund. You own the building she is jealous of. You need to start acting like it. I looked at my hands. They had stopped shaking. The fear was still there. But it was different now. It was cold. It was calculating. I am going to destroy her, I said. Not with screaming, with paper, Marianne smiled. It was a shark smile. Now you are speaking my language, she said. Go to the campus police, file the report, then go see a lawyer, a real one, not the legal aid clinic. I have one, I said. I have the firm that handles the trust. Good, Marianne said. Call them. Tell them your mother just tried to rob their biggest client. I turned to the door. I felt lighter, but also heavier. The secret was out, at least in this room. The safety of anonymity was gone, but in its place, I had something else. I had leverage. I put my hand on the doorknob. Ms. Mitchell? Marianne called out. I turned back. Advanced heat transfer, she said. Dr. Evans? Yes. I will send him an email, she said. I will tell him you were detained on official university business regarding endowment strategy. You won't be penalized for walking out. Thank you, I said. I walked out of the dean's suite. The hallway was quiet. I walked past the portraits of the old men who had founded the university. I walked past the window that looked out over the campus. I could see Hartwell Innovation Hall in the distance, its glass facade gleaming in the winter sun. It looked strong. It looked permanent. My mother wanted a war? She wanted to drag me back to the kitchen table to sign checks for Cole? She had no idea who she had just hung up on. I pulled out my phone. I didn't check my messages. I didn't check my missed calls. I opened my contacts and scrolled past Mom, past Dad, past Cole. I stopped at a name I hadn't called in 6 months. Robert Sterling, Esquire. I pressed call. It was time to audit the family. I stepped out of the administration building and the cold hit me like a physical weight. It was not the sharp, stinging cold of the morning that woke you up. It was a dull, heavy freeze that seemed to settle in the marrow of my bones. I walked over to a concrete bench near the fountain in the center of the quad and sat down. The stone was freezing through my jeans. But I did not move. I just watched the campus move around me. Students were rushing to the dining hall for lunch. A group of undergraduates was laughing about a chemistry test they had just failed. A couple was arguing softly near the bike racks about whose turn it was to buy groceries. It was all so normal. It was violently, aggressively normal. They were living in a world where parents were safety nets, or at worst, annoying nuisances who asked too many questions about dating. They were not living in a world where their mother had just tried to clinically diagnose them as insane to secure a bookkeeper for a failing family business. I looked at my hands. They were raw from the cold, but steady. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I had silenced it before walking into the dean's office, but I had not turned it off. The screen was black. I tapped it. The notifications cascaded down the screen in a terrifying waterfall of digital desperation. 42 missed calls, 28 text messages. The names flashed in a repetitive, nauseating loop. Mom, 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 Dad, Cole, Mom, Dad, Cole. I scrolled through the log. The timeline told a story of escalating panic. My mother's calls had stopped exactly 7 minutes ago, right when Marianne Voss had hung up on her. Then, my father's calls began. Glenn Mitchell, a man who had spent the last 30 years letting his wife steer the ship while he sat in the passenger seat complaining about the traffic. Then, Cole. I opened the text thread with Cole. The most recent message had come in 3 minutes ago. Mom is hyperventilating. Dad is losing it. Stop playing games. Isla, just pick up the phone and tell the school it was a mistake. I need those papers signed by Friday, or the investors walk. Don't be a selfish bitch. I read the message twice. Selfish bitch. It was a phrase I had heard so many times it had lost its jagged edges. It was the family motto whenever I drew a boundary. I set the phone down on the bench beside me. I did not reply. Instead, I let the cold air bite at my face and allowed myself to do something I had avoided for years. I opened the ledger in my head. I am an engineer. I work with thermodynamics, with energy transfer, with efficiency ratings. I understand that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred. And for the first time, I looked at the energy transfer of my family dynamic with the cold, hard eyes of a scientist. It was a system with a massive, catastrophic leak. I thought about the family debt they were always talking about, the idea that I owed them, that my existence was a loan they had taken out, and the interest payments were due in perpetuity. I remembered when I was 21, I had landed a summer internship at a cutting-edge solar fabrication plant in Arizona. It was the opportunity of a lifetime. It was the internship that would have paved the way for my doctorate 2 years earlier than I eventually started. I had my bags packed. I had a sublease signed, 2 days before I was supposed to fly out. Tracy sat me down at the kitchen table. She didn't scream that day. She used the soft voice, the voice that sounded like love, but felt like a trap. Cole is in trouble. Isla, she had said. He tried to expand the gym business too fast. He is underwater. He needs someone to help him manage the front desk and reorganize the membership files for the summer. We cannot afford to hire anyone. If he loses this business, it will break his heart. But Mom, I had said, this is my career. This is solar fabrication. Family comes first. She had replied, the solar panels will always be there. Your brother needs you now. Don't be so career-obsessed. It makes you look cold. I stayed. I unpacked my bags. I called the company in Arizona and lied, telling them I had a family emergency. I spent 3 months sitting at the front desk of a sweaty gym that smelled of stale rubber and failure, organizing files that Cole ignored anyway. And what happened to the gym? It closed 4 months later, Cole got bored. He sold the equipment for a loss and moved on to his next vision, a custom sneaker customization service. When I asked about my lost internship, my father shrugged. It was a learning experience for Cole. He said, he is an entrepreneur. Failure is part of the process. You should be proud you helped him learn. That was the accounting of the Mitchell family. Cole's failures were investments. My sacrifices were duty. When Cole lost $10,000 on a crypto scam, he was bold. When I won a full academic scholarship, I was getting big for my britches. When I worked 3 jobs to pay for my undergraduate degree, because they claimed all their liquid cash was tied up in Cole's inventory. I was independent. When I refused to loan Cole $2,000 for rent, I was hoarding. I looked at the phone again. The screen lit up. Dad calling. I let it ring. The anger that had been burning in the dean's office was cooling into something solid, something structural. Today was not just an escalation. It was a shift in the fundamental physics of our relationship. Tracy had not just asked for a favor today. She had not just guilt-tripped me. She had attempted to obliterate my legal standing as a human being. She had weaponized the concept of mental health. She knew that the only thing that could stop a high-functioning, successful woman was the label of hysterical. She used the stigma of mental illness as a tactical nuke. She was willing to put a permanent mark on my academic and medical record, a mark that could prevent me from getting security clearances, government contracts, or tenure in the future, just to get me into a car. She was willing to destroy my future to secure Cole's present. That was not love. That was predation. I picked up the phone. I did not answer my father. I swiped the call away and opened my contacts. I found the number Marianne Voss had written on a sticky note and handed to me before I left. University Office of General Counsel. Ask for Sarah Jenkins. I pressed dial. It rang once, twice. General Counsel, this is Sarah Jenkins. Ms. Jenkins, I said. My voice was steady. It sounded like the voice of the woman who owned the Hartwell Trust, not the girl who had worked the front desk at a gym. This is Isla Mitchell. I was just in Dean Voss's office. Ms. Mitchell? The lawyer's voice became instantly alert. I have just received the file from the dean's assistant. I am reviewing the logs now. I want to assure you that the withdrawal request has been purged from the active queue and the security lock is in place. That is good, I said. But that is not why I am calling. Oh? I want to pursue this, I said. I want to file a formal complaint regarding the unauthorized access. Marianne mentioned a no trespass order. I want that process today, and I want to know what my options are for pressing charges regarding the forged medical documents. There was a brief silence on the other end. Ms. Mitchell, usually in these family situations, the student just wants the account secured. Pursuing fraud charges against a parent is a significant legal step. It involves police reports. It involves a criminal investigation. I know what it involves, I said. My mother impersonated me to a federal institution. She submitted falsified medical records with the intent to strip me of my legal autonomy. If a stranger did this, would we be hesitating? No, Jenkins admitted. We would not. Then do not hesitate now, I said. She tried to end my career. Ms. Jenkins, I want the paper trail to be bulletproof. I want it on the record that she is a fraud, so that if she ever tries to claim guardianship over me again in any court in this country, there is a university legal filing that calls her a liar. Understood, Jenkins said. Her tone shifted from advisory to respectful. I will draft the affidavits. You will need to come in to sign them. And we will notify the campus police to issue the persona non grata order for Tracy Caldwell immediately. Thank you. I hung up. The sun was starting to dip lower, casting long shadows across the snow. I looked at my phone one last time. Dad. 3 missed calls. Mom. 5 missed calls. Cole. New message. Pick up the phone, you psycho. I stared at the word psycho. That was their narrative now. If I fought back, I was crazy. If I cut them off, I was unstable. They would tell the aunts and uncles that Isla had snapped. They would tell the neighbors that the pressure of the PhD was too much, and I had turned on my loving family. Let them tell it. I opened my contact settings. I selected Mom. I scrolled down to the bottom of the screen. The letters were red. Block this caller. I did not hesitate. I did not cry. I pressed it. It felt like closing a blast door. It wasn't an act of aggression. It was an act of containment. I did the same for Glenn Mitchell. I did the same for Cole Mitchell. The phone went silent. The vibrations stopped. The waterfall of desperation dried up instantly. I sat there in the quiet, looking at the Hartwell Innovation Hall in the distance. I had built that. I had signed the checks. I had approved the blueprints. I had done it all while they thought I was struggling to pay rent. I was not their daughter anymore. Not in the way they wanted. I was a sovereign entity. But as I sat there, a new, colder thought crept into my mind. Tracy had the answers to my security questions. She had my social security number. She must have. To set up the portal access years ago or to verify her identity as a parent. She had tried to withdraw me to get a refund. Marianne had said it. She wanted the tuition refund. But why was she so desperate for cash right now? Cole's business was a startup. Startups were always broke. But this felt different. This felt like panic. And if she was willing to impersonate me to the university, where else was she impersonating me? A chill that had nothing to do with the Ohio winter went down my spine. I had excellent credit. I knew this because I checked it once a year. I had a significant trust fund that was managed by high-end lawyers, locked down tight. But my personal identity? The simple, everyday Isla Mitchell identity? The one with a social security number and a date of birth that my mother knew by heart? I stood up from the bench. The numbness in my legs was gone, replaced by a surge of urgent, terrifying energy. I had blocked them on my phone, but I had left the back door of my financial life wide open for 26 years. I needed to get to my apartment. I needed my laptop. I needed to run a credit report, not the free summary one, the deep one, the forensic one. I started walking, my pace quickening with every step. The university battle was over. The war for my name was just beginning. The office of the campus public safety department was located in the basement of the student union, a place that smelled aggressively of floor wax and stale coffee. It was a stark contrast to the plush carpets of the dean's suite. Here, there were no oil paintings of donors, only corkboards covered in safety bulletins and wanted posters for bike thieves. I sat across from Sergeant Miller, a man with a thick neck and eyes that looked like they had seen every possible variation of undergraduate stupidity. He was typing slowly into a computer that hummed like a lawnmower. "So," Miller said, not looking up from his keyboard, "let me get this straight. The suspect is your mother?" "Yes," I said. My voice was flat. I had told the story 3 times in the last hour. Once to Marianne Voss, once to Sarah Jenkins in legal, and now to Sergeant Miller. The repetition was stripping the emotion away, leaving only the cold, hard facts. Tracy Caldwell. She lives in Naperville, Illinois. And she called the registrar at... He squinted at his notes. 9:15 in the morning, I supplied. She identified herself as me. She provided my social security number and the answers to my security questions. She then uploaded a forged medical document claiming I was mentally incapacitated. Miller stopped typing. He looked up at me. "And you are saying she did this to... what? Prank you?" "To force a withdrawal," I said. "To remove me from the university so I would be forced to return to her home, and, based on the conversation I just had with the dean's office, to potentially claim a tuition refund to a bank account she controls." Miller let out a low whistle. "That is heavy. Ms. Mitchell, that is not just a domestic dispute. That is fraud, identity theft, computer trespass." "I know," I said. "I want to file a formal report, and the general counsel for the university said I need a no trespass order." "We are issuing that now," Miller said, hitting a final key with a heavy thud. "Persona non grata status. We are putting her photo, we got it from her driver's license record, at every gatehouse and security station if she sets foot on Redwood Lake's property. She will be arrested for criminal trespassing. We don't play around with parents who try to hack the system." He printed out a sheet of paper and slid it across the metal desk. "Here is your case number. Keep this on you. If she shows up at your apartment, are you in university housing?" "No," I said. "I am in a private building off campus, the Latitude Apartments. We don't have jurisdiction there," Miller warned. "If she shows up there, you call 911 immediately. Do not open the door. Do not engage. You show the city police this case number and tell them there is an active investigation involving identity theft." I took the paper. It felt flimsy, a single sheet of wood pulp standing between me and the woman who had given birth to me. "Thank you, Sergeant," I said. I walked out of the station and into the fading afternoon light. My phone was still silent, thanks to the blocks I had put in place, but the phantom vibration ghosted against my thigh every few minutes. I went straight to the legal aid office where Sarah Jenkins was waiting for me. She was younger than Marianne Voss, sharper in a different way, less corporate shark, more compliance pit bull. "I have the affidavit ready," Sarah said the moment I walked in. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Sign here, here, and here. This states that you, Isla Mitchell, affirm that the withdrawal request was fraudulent. It locks your file. From this moment on, no one can change your major, view your grades, or access your financial aid without you physically standing in the registrar's office with a passport or driver's license," I signed. The pen scratched loudly in the quiet office. "Now," Sarah said, capping her pen, "I am going to give you some advice that isn't strictly university business, but you need to hear it. If she knew your security questions, Isla, she knows everything." "I know," I said. "I mean everything," Sarah emphasized. "She knows your mother's maiden name because it is her name. She knows your first pet. She knows the street you grew up on. Those are the keys to the kingdom for every bank, credit card company, and email provider in America. You need to burn your digital identity to the ground and rebuild it tonight." "Burn it?" "Change every password," Sarah recited, counting off on her fingers. "And do not use things she knows. Do not use your birthday. Do not use your favorite color. Use random strings of characters. Enable two-factor authentication on everything, but do not use SMS text messages if you can avoid it. Use an authenticator app. SIM swapping is too easy for someone who knows your carrier details." She leaned forward. "And freeze your credit immediately. All 3 bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. If she was looking for a tuition refund, she is looking for cash. Don't let her open a credit card in your name to pay for her flight out here." I nodded, feeling a cold knot of nausea tighten in my stomach. "I will do it as soon as I get home." "Don't wait," Sarah said grimly. "Do it on the walk home." I took her advice. I walked back to my apartment with my phone in my hand, navigating the clunky interfaces of the credit bureau websites. The wind was biting at my exposed fingers, but I didn't stop. Freeze placed, freeze placed, freeze placed. By the time I unlocked the door to my apartment, I felt like I was inside a fortress. But fortresses are lonely places. My apartment was quiet. It was a nice place, paid for by the stipend from the trust that I funneled through a separate LLC so no one would ask questions. Modern furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, a drafting table covered in schematics for a wind turbine blade. It was the sanctuary I had built for myself. Now, it felt violated. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. I logged into my primary email. Inbox. 700 unread messages. Most were spam, but the recent ones were a wall of noise from the family. I selected them all. Every email from my mother, my father, and Cole, and moved them to a folder I named Litigation Hold. I didn't read them. I couldn't read them. Not yet. I started the password purge. Bank of America, Chase, the university portal, my brokerage account, my health insurance. For every security question, I lied. What is your mother's maiden name? Answer, Titanium. What was the name of your first pet? Answer, Thermodynamics. I was rewriting my history into something they couldn't guess. Then, I went to the credit report. I had frozen the files, but I hadn't looked at the detailed history yet. I pulled up the full report from Experian. It cost me $20 for the instant view. The screen refreshed. Score: 785. Status: frozen. Recent inquiries. My eyes scanned the list. There was the inquiry from my landlord 2 years ago, the inquiry for my American Express card last year, and then, there it was, dated 3 weeks ago. Creditor: First National Small Business Lending. Inquiry type: hard pull. Reason: commercial line of credit application. Applicant: Isla Mitchell / Ridgecrest Concepts, LLC. I stopped breathing. 3 weeks ago. This wasn't about the withdrawal today. This wasn't a sudden desperate move because I wouldn't answer the phone. They had applied for a business loan in my name 3 weeks ago. Ridgecrest Concepts, I whispered. That was Cole's company, the visionary startup. I clicked on the details. The application amount wasn't listed on the inquiry. But the type of loan was revolving commercial credit. Guarantor required. The guarantor was me. I sat back in my chair, the room spinning slightly. Cole had bad credit. Everyone knew that. He had defaulted on a truck loan and 2 credit cards. He couldn't finance a pack of gum, so he had used me. But to apply for this, they would have needed my signature. They would have needed a copy of my driver's license. I remembered Thanksgiving. I had gone home for 2 days. A mistake. I knew now. I remembered leaving my purse on the kitchen counter while I went out to the backyard to help my dad fix the grill. I remembered coming back and finding my wallet sitting at a slightly different angle. They had photocopied my ID. They had probably practiced my signature. The withdrawal from school. The psychotic break. It wasn't just to get me home to do the books, if the bank called to verify the loan. And I picked up. I would deny it. I would say it was fraud. But if I was medically incapacitated, if I was withdrawn from society, and under the legal guardianship of my mother, then she could answer the phone. She could verify the loan as my guardian. She could sign the final closing documents on my behalf because I was too sick to do it myself. They were trying to borrow hundreds of thousands of dollars against my credit score, and they needed me legally silenced to get away with it. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a cosigner. I grabbed my phone. My hands were shaking again. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was a cold, surgical rage. I dialed Robert Sterling. He answered on the second ring. Isla, everything all right? We don't usually hear from you on a Tuesday. Robert, I said, I need you to open a new file. Not for the trust. For me personally. What is going on? My mother attempted to involuntarily withdraw me from Redwood Lakes University this morning by impersonating me and submitting forged medical records, I said, listing the facts like I was reading a spec sheet. And I just found a hard inquiry on my credit report for a business loan for my brother's company that I didn't authorize. There was a silence on the line. Robert Sterling was a man who handled billions of dollars. He did not get shocked easily, but the silence stretched for 5 full seconds. She did what? He asked, his voice losing its usual polished warmth. They are trying to leverage my identity to fund Cole's business, I said. I need to go on the offensive. Robert, I don't just want to defend, I want to prosecute. Okay, Robert said. I could hear the rustle of him moving, perhaps standing up. Isla, listen to me. This crosses the line from family law into criminal fraud. I am a trust attorney. You need a shark who eats fraudsters for lunch. Who do I call? I am going to refer you to a colleague of mine, Robert said. His name is Marcus Thorne. He is a forensic accountant and a litigator. He specializes in piercing corporate veils and tracing stolen assets. He is expensive. Isla, very expensive. I have $4.8 million given to a university in the last 3 years. I said, I can afford him. I will call him right now, Robert said. Expect a text from him in 10 minutes. And Isla, do not speak to your family, not one word. If they call, let it go to voicemail. If they show up, call the police. Way ahead of you. Robert, I hung up. I sat there, staring at the inquiry on my screen. Ridgecrest Concepts. It sounded so legitimate, so professional. It was a shell game built on my credit score. My email pinged. I looked at the notifications. A new email had slipped through the filters. Or maybe I hadn't set the filter for this specific address yet. From Cole, Mitchell88@gmail.com. Subject: You are unbelievable. I hovered over the delete button. Then I stopped. Robert had said prosecute. Prosecution required evidence. I opened the email. Isla: I don't know what lies you told the school, but Mom is a wreck. She can't stop crying. Dad is pacing the floor saying he's going to drive out there and drag you home. You are so selfish. You have always been selfish. We put a roof over your head for 18 years. We fed you. And now, when the family finally has a shot at real wealth, you want to sabotage it? I needed that verification. Isla: The investors were ready. You just had to come home and sign a few papers. That's it. It wouldn't have cost you a dime. But no, you have to play the victim. You have to make it about you. You owe us this. You owe me. I'm the oldest. It was supposed to be my turn. Fix this. Call the dean back. Tell them you were confused. Tell them Mom was right. If you don't, you're dead to us. Cole. I read it twice. It wouldn't have cost you a dime. He was lying even in the guilt trip. It would have cost me everything. If that loan defaulted, and it would, because Cole was involved, the bank would have come for me. They would have garnished my wages. They would have seized my assets. They would have found the trust. He admitted it. I needed that verification. He admitted the motive in writing. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel the old pang of, maybe I am being difficult. I felt the satisfaction of a hunter who just watched the prey step directly into the trap. I clicked print to PDF. I saved the file as evidence_admission_cole.pdf. Then my phone lit up. An unknown number, area code 630. That was home. That was Naperville. I knew who it was. My father. He was calling from a burner, or a neighbor's phone, because I had blocked his main line. I stared at the ringing phone. The impulse to answer, to explain, to defend myself was a ghost muscle twitching in my brain. It was the training of 20 years. Answer your father. Be respectful. I swiped to answer. I didn't speak. Who do you think you are? The voice was a roar. It was Glenn Mitchell, unmasked. No more go along to get along. This was the voice of a man who realized his retirement plan just walked away. You ungrateful little brat, he screamed. The distortion on the line was terrible. You sue your mother? You put a police order on your mother? After everything we did? I should have let you starve when you went to that fancy school. You think you're better than us? You're nothing. You're a cold-hearted... I pressed the red button. I didn't say a word. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I went into the call history, selected the number, and tapped block caller. Then I went to the settings and enabled silence unknown callers. The apartment was silent again. The silence was different now. It wasn't the silence of hiding. It was the silence of a vault door sealing shut. My phone buzzed with a text message. It wasn't family. Sender: Marcus Thorne. Message: Robert Sterling briefed me. I have run a preliminary skip trace on Ridgecrest Concepts based on the inquiry you found. Isla: You need to come to my office immediately. I am at 400 West Market, Suite 500. Bring your laptop. I typed back. I can be there in 20 minutes. Is it bad? The 3 dots appeared instantly. Then the reply. Message: It is not just a loan application. I found 3 more shell companies using your social security number as the principal officer. This is not a family squabble anymore. This is a racketeering enterprise. Get here now. I stared at the phone. Racketeering. I grabbed my coat. I grabbed my laptop. I didn't look back at the apartment. I walked out into the cold dark of the evening, leaving the girl who wanted her parents' approval behind in the empty room. The woman who walked out the door was the university's biggest donor, and she was going to war. Marcus Thorne's office was not designed to make clients feel comfortable. It was designed to make them feel exposed. The walls were glass. The furniture was black leather and chrome, and the air conditioning was set to a temperature that I suspected was meant to keep data servers from overheating rather than to keep humans warm. I sat in a chair that cost more than my first car, staring at a 60-inch monitor mounted on the wall. Marcus sat behind his desk, typing with a speed that blurred his fingers. He was a small man, wiry and intense, with glasses that reflected the blue light of the screens. He did not look like a lawyer or an accountant. He looked like a surgeon preparing to amputate a limb. "You might want to put your coffee down, Ms. Mitchell," Marcus said. His voice was dry, devoid of the pity I had seen in everyone else's eyes today. "This is going to be unpleasant." "Show me," I said. Marcus hit a key. The screen flooded with data. It was a visualization of my financial existence, a web of nodes and lines. Most of it was green, my legitimate accounts, the trust, my student loans. But woven through it, like a parasitic vine, were bright red lines originating from a single IP address in Naperville, Illinois. "We knew about the Ridgecrest Concepts inquiry," Marcus said, using a laser pointer to circle a cluster of red data points. "That was the clumsy attempt that flagged the system today, but that was just them getting sloppy. They have been inside for a lot longer than 3 weeks." He clicked a folder icon. 2 credit card statements popped up. 18 months ago, Marcus said. 2 accounts were opened with Chase and American Express, both approved instantly due to your high credit score. The mailing address on file is your parents' house in Naperville. The email address associated with the accounts is islettsmitchell@finances@gmail.com. I assume you do not own that address? "No," I whispered. "I have never seen it." "They set it up to intercept the digital statements," Marcus explained. "They went paperless immediately, so no physical mail would come to you. And look at the usage." He scrolled down. It was a grotesque diary of suburban indulgence, Best Buy, $2,400. Naperville Country Club, $400. Delta Airlines, $1,200. Liquor Barn, $300. "They have racked up nearly $28,000 in debt in your name over the last year and a half," Marcus said. "They have been making the minimum payments from a joint checking account owned by Tracy and Glenn Mitchell to keep the utilization under the radar. That is why your score didn't tank. They were managing the debt just enough to keep the host alive while they fed on it." I felt a wave of nausea roll over me. It wasn't the money. The trust generated more interest than that in a month. It was the intimacy of the betrayal. They had been eating dinner with me at Thanksgiving, asking me how my classes were going, all while wearing clothes bought with my stolen credit. "The signature," I said. "Show me the application." Marcus pulled up the PDF of the original credit application. At the bottom, in the digital signature box, was a scrawl, "Isla Mitchell." I leaned forward, the leather creaking beneath me. It wasn't just a forgery. It was a trace. It had the specific loop on the L that I used. It had the sharp cross on the T. "They practiced," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "That isn't just someone scribbling my name. Someone sat down with a copy of my signature and learned how to mimic it." "Identity theft is rarely impulsive," Marcus said. "It is a project, and your mother, or whoever is driving this, is a project manager." He closed the window and brought up a new one. This one was titled Ridgecrest Concepts, LLC. "This is where it gets dangerous," Marcus said. "Consumer debt is one thing. We can claim fraud, file police reports, and usually get it scrubbed. But this is corporate." The screen showed a business line of credit, a revolving liquidity facility attached to Cole's company. "They listed you as the guarantor and the chief financial officer," Marcus said. "They used your credentials to verify the business's solvency. Essentially, they made you the silent partner who takes all the risk. If Cole's business goes under, and looking at these financials, it is already underwater, the creditors come for you. They don't just take your savings, they can sue for your future earnings." "They wanted to turn me into a human shield," I said. "They wanted a puppet," Marcus corrected. "A financial puppet. Think about the timing of the withdrawal attempt today. Isla, why today? Why the sudden urgency to declare you mentally incapacitated? Because I wouldn't answer the phone to sign the new loan papers, I said. That is part of it, Marcus said. But look at this. He pulled up a document from the university's internal finance server, something he had subpoenaed or accessed through his forensic channels. It was a refund request form. If a student withdraws for medical reasons within the first 3 weeks of the semester, Marcus recited, the university policy dictates a 100% refund of tuition and fees. I stared at the screen. The semester had started 2 weeks ago. The tuition for your program is fully covered by the fellowship, I said. I don't pay it. Your parents do not know that, Marcus said. Or they didn't, until Marianne Voss told them. They think you are paying out of pocket or taking loans. They submitted a refund request attached to the withdrawal. Look at the direct deposit routing number they entered for the refund. I looked. It wasn't my bank. It was a routing number for a credit union in Illinois. That is Tracy's personal account, I said. I recognized the last 4 digits. They were trying to cash you out, Marcus said brutally. They thought the university would refund $40,000 of tuition money. They wanted to intercept that refund. That is why they needed you incapacitated. If you are in a mental hospital, you aren't checking your student account to see that the money is missing. I stood up. I couldn't sit anymore. I walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. I felt like I was looking at a different world, a world where mothers didn't sell their daughters for $40,000. They were going to commit grand larceny, I said to the glass, and they were going to use a fake mental health diagnosis to cover their tracks. We have the smoking gun on the diagnosis, too, Marcus said. I turned back. The doctor's note? It is a fake, Marcus said. A bad one. Forensically speaking, the letterhead is copied from a real practice in Chicago. But the signature is a stamp. And the metadata? That is the nail in the coffin. He tapped the screen. A properties window opened up. Created, yesterday, 11:42 p.m. Author, Cole Mitchell. Device, MacBook Pro/Ridgecrest admin. Software, Adobe Acrobat Pro. Cole, I said. The name tasted like ash. Cole wrote the note saying I was crazy. He wrote it on his work computer, Marcus said, which ties his company directly to the fraud. Ridgecrest Concepts isn't just a failing startup. Isla, it is now a vehicle for criminal conspiracy. My brother, the one I had defended on the playground, the one I had helped with homework, he had sat at his computer, probably drinking a beer, and typed out a document that would strip me of my civil rights. Also, he could steal tuition money I didn't even have. What do we do? I asked. We go nuclear, Marcus said. I have already drafted the affidavits for the banks. We are flagging the credit cards as fraudulent. We are notifying the credit bureaus to permanently lock the file. But that is defense. You wanted offense. Yes. I am sending this package, he pointed to the screen, to the DuPage County State's Attorney in Illinois and the Franklin County Prosecutor here in Ohio. We are filing for identity theft, wire fraud, and forgery, and I am contacting the bank that holds the Ridgecrest loan application to inform them that the guarantor signature is forged. That will trigger an immediate freeze on Cole's business accounts. Do it, I said. My phone buzzed on the table. It was a text message. I looked at it. It was from a number I didn't recognize, but the preview text made my heart stop. Unknown number. Isla, please. It's Mom. I'm using the neighbor's phone. You are killing me. I can't breathe. My chest hurts. If you don't call me back, I don't know what will happen. Do you want me to die thinking you hate me? I stared at the words. You are killing me. It was the ultimate trump card, the card she played whenever she was losing control. When I wanted to go to a college out of state, she had migraines. When I moved out, she had heart palpitations. Now, faced with prison time and financial ruin, she was dying. Marcus watched me read it. Let me guess. A medical emergency? She says her chest hurts, I said. She asks if I want her to die. That is the guilt hook, Marcus said. It is designed to bypass your logic and hit your emotional center. If you reply, you validate the tactic. If you reply, she knows she can still control you. I looked at the phone. I remembered the metadata. Author, Cole Mitchell. I remembered the credit card charges at the liquor store. I remembered the $4.8 million I had given to build something real. While they tried to dismantle me for parts, I didn't reply. I didn't block the number. I simply took a screenshot. Add it to the file, I said, forwarding the image to Marcus. Evidence of emotional manipulation and harassment. Marcus nodded, impressed. You are learning. Is that everything? I asked. The cards? The loan? The refund? Marcus hesitated. For the first time, the shark-like confidence wavered. He looked down at his desk, then back up at me. There is one more thing, he said, and this is the one that worries me the most. What could be worse than this? When I ran the search on your name and social security number against the banking databases, Marcus said slowly, I found a rejected transaction from 4 days ago. He clicked a final tab. It was a document request form, but it wasn't from a bank. It was a request sent to the administrative office of the Hartwell Family Trust. My blood ran cold. The trust? But they didn't know. You heard Marianne? They were shocked when she told them. They didn't know you were the donor, Marcus corrected. They didn't know you controlled the whole thing. But they found something. Maybe an old letter from your aunt. Maybe a tax document you left behind years ago that referenced the trust's name. He enlarged the document. It was an invoice. To the Hartwell Family Trust / attention, educational disbursements. From Ridgecrest Concepts, regarding consulting services for beneficiary. Isla Mitchell. Amount, $65,000. They tried to bill the trust, I whispered. They thought the trust was just some fund paying for my school. They tried to submit a fake invoice for consulting to get money out of it. The trust administrator rejected it because it lacked your countersignature, Marcus said. But do you see what this means? They were probing. They were poking at the walls of your inheritance. If they had successfully declared you incompetent, if Tracy had become your guardian, she would have signed it, I finished. She would have signed the invoice as my guardian, and the trust would have paid it. And not just $65,000, Marcus said. Once they were inside, once they realized how much money was actually there, they would have drained it dry. They wouldn't have just built a summer home, Isla. They would have consumed the scholarship fund. They would have gutted the research grants. They would have eaten the innovation hall piece by piece. I sank back into the chair. It wasn't just greed. It was a parasite trying to consume the host entirely. They didn't just want my credit score, I said, my voice hollow. They wanted my legacy. And now, Marcus said, closing the laptop with a definitive snap, we are going to take theirs. He stood up and handed me a thick envelope. Go home, Isla. Lock your door. Do not answer the door for anyone but the police. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, we file these papers. And by noon, your mother won't be worrying about her chest pains. She will be worrying about bail. I took the envelope. It felt heavy. It contained the destruction of my family. Thank you, Marcus, I said. I walked out of the office building into the night. The snow had started to fall again, large flakes drifting down in the orange glow of the streetlights. I hailed a cab. I didn't want to walk anymore. As I sat in the back seat, watching the city pass by, I felt a strange sensation. I expected to feel sad. I expected to feel the heartbreak of a daughter losing her mother. But I didn't. I felt the cold, clean clarity of a structural engineer who had finally located the fracture in the foundation. The house had to come down. There was no saving it. The only thing left to do was to control the demolition so it didn't take me with it. I looked at my phone one last time. The screenshot of my mother's text was still there. Do you want me to die thinking you hate me? I turned the screen off. I didn't hate her. Hate implied passion. Hate implied that she still had power over me. I didn't feel hate. I felt foreclosure. I sat in the dark of my apartment. the glow of my laptop screen illuminating the empty coffee cup on my desk. It was 3 a.m. My lawyer, Marcus Thorne, had been clear. We had the credit card fraud. We had the attempted tuition theft. We had the forged medical records. But to truly nail the coffin shut on Ridgecrest Concepts, to ensure that Cole could never claim this was all just a misunderstanding or a family dispute, we needed a confession. We needed him to tie the financial fraud directly to the withdrawal attempt. I needed him to say it out loud. I unlocked my phone. I unblocked Cole's number for exactly 10 seconds. I typed a single message. I am willing to listen, but I need to see the paperwork. Meet me at the grind on 4th Street at 8. Come alone. I hit send and immediately reblocked him. I did not want a reply. I did not want a negotiation. I wanted a deposition, even if he did not know he was giving one. I slept for 3 hours. When I woke up, I dressed not as the successful doctoral candidate or the wealthy donor, but as the tired, overwhelmed sister they expected me to be. I wore a frantic, oversized sweater and no makeup. I pulled my hair back into a messy bun. I looked like a girl who was ready to surrender. Underneath the sweater, however, my phone was set to voice memo mode. Ohio is a one-party consent state. As long as I was part of the conversation, I could record every word legally. I arrived at the grind 10 minutes early. It was a hipster coffee shop with exposed brick walls and overpriced lattes, the kind of place Cole thought successful people frequented. I chose a table in the corner, away from the espresso machine noise, ensuring clear audio. Cole walked in at 8 sharp. He looked like a caricature of a CEO. He was wearing a suit that was too shiny, a watch that was too big, and he was carrying a leather portfolio that looked brand new. But the details betrayed him. His collar was frayed. His eyes were bloodshot. He had the manic, jittery energy of a man who was juggling chainsaws. He spotted me and marched over, pulling out the chair with a flourish. "Isla," he said, exhaling loudly as if he had just run a marathon. "Thank God. You finally came to your senses. Mom is a wreck. You really scared her." "I am the one who is scared, Cole," I said softly, keeping my eyes on the table. "I have police officers telling me I am a victim of identity theft. I have the registrar telling me I am insane. I don't know what is going on." Cole waved his hand dismissively. "The police? That is just noise. Bureaucracy. Once we sign the papers, I can clear all that up. It is just a misunderstanding of the corporate structure." He placed the portfolio on the table. "Look, I know yesterday was intense. Mom, she gets dramatic, but you have to understand the pressure we are under. Ridgecrest is exploding. We are talking about vertical integration. We are talking about disrupting the logistics market." "Disrupting it how?" I asked. "Synergy," Cole said. He leaned back, crossing his arms. "We are leveraging AI-driven supply chains to optimize last-mile delivery. The investors are drooling over the concept, but they are old school. They want traditional security." "Security?" I repeated. "Exactly," Cole said. "They love the vision, but because the IP is so fresh, they need a guarantor with a specific credit profile to underwrite the initial liquidity injection, just for the bridge loan, 90 days, max." "And that guarantor is me," I said. Cole smiled. It was the smile he used to use when he wanted to borrow my car. It was charming, practiced, and completely empty. "Well, look at the options. Dad's credit is shot from the house remodel. Mom doesn't have the income history. You are pristine. Isla, you are the only one in the family with a credit score starting with an 8. You are the most trustworthy person we have." He said it like a compliment. Trustworthy. In his dictionary, trustworthy meant exploitable. "But why did Mom try to withdraw me from school?" I asked. I leaned in, making sure the microphone in my pocket had a clear path. "If this is just about a loan, why did she tell them I was psychotic? Why did she try to drag me home?" Cole sighed, rolling his eyes as if discussing a toddler's tantrum. "You know how she is. We needed you here to sign the papers in person. The bank requires wet signatures for the guarantor. I told her. Mom, Isla is busy. She won't just come home for a signature. And she panicked. She said, I will get her home. She thought if she created an emergency, you would have to come back. So the medical emergency, the psychotic break, that was just a strategy? I asked. It was leverage, Cole corrected. She was just trying to expedite the process. She knew you were stubborn. She knew you would prioritize your little lab coat duties over the family legacy. She had to force your hand. It was for your own good. Really, once this deal closes, Isla, we are talking about millions. You won't need that PhD. You will be the CFO of a Fortune 500 company. I felt a cold shiver trace down my spine. There it was. He admitted it. She had to force your hand. He connected the fraud to the business deal. He confirmed the motive was financial coercion. And the credit cards? I asked. The ones opened 18 months ago? Cole didn't even flinch. Seed capital. Every startup has a bootstrapping phase. We used your name to secure the initial inventory because, again, you are the strong link. We paid the minimums, didn't we? It helped your credit score. Utilization shows activity. You should be thanking me for building your history. I stared at him. He actually believed it. He had twisted reality so thoroughly that in his mind, stealing my identity was a favor. I need to see the papers, I said. If I'm going to sign, I need to see what I am signing. Cole beamed. The shark had bitten. He unzipped the portfolio and slid a stack of documents across the table. Standard indemnity, he said. Just a formality to release the funds. I looked at the documents. It was the loan application I had seen in Marcus's office. Principal amount, $350,000. Interest rate, 12%. Guarantor, Isla Mitchell. It was a death sentence for my financial future. I have a condition, I said. Cole paused, his pen hovering. What? I have my own investors, I lied. For my research, they require me to disclose any external business affiliations. If I am going to be your CFO, if I am going to be your guarantor, I need you to sign a waiver stating that Ridgecrest Concepts assumes full liability for any pre-existing debts incurred under my name. I reached into my bag and pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was the document Marcus had drafted early that morning. It looked like legalese, but it was essentially a confession of judgment. It stated that the undersigned acknowledged full responsibility for the accounts ending in 4598 and 2210, the fraudulent credit cards, and admitted they were opened without the guarantor's consent. It is just a liability waiver, I said, keeping my voice steady, so my research grant doesn't get audited. Cole looked at the paper. He didn't read the account numbers. He didn't read the clause about unauthorized opening. He just saw a hurdle between him and his money. Sure, he said. Liability waiver, standard stuff. He scribbled his signature at the bottom. He didn't even read it. He was so desperate, so arrogant, that he signed a document admitting to federal credit card fraud because he thought it was a receipt. I took the paper back and slid it into my bag. Okay, I said. And the loan papers? Right here, Cole said, tapping the X next to the guarantor line. Sign here, and we are rich. I picked up his pen. It was a heavy, expensive fountain pen, probably bought with my American Express card. I held it for a moment. I looked at my brother. I looked at the dark circles under his eyes, the desperation in his smile. I realized then that he wasn't evil in the way a movie villain is evil. He was just a black hole. He was a void of need and entitlement that would swallow everything I gave him and demand more. I can't sign this today, I said. Cole's smile faltered. What? You just said... I said I needed to see the paperwork. I said, I have seen it. Now I need to have my lawyer review it. Lawyer? Cole's voice rose. We don't need lawyers, Isla. We are family. Lawyers just slow things down. The investors need this by noon. Then the investors will be disappointed, I said. I stood up. Sit down, Cole snapped. The charm was gone. The predator was back. You are not leaving until you sign that paper. Do you have any idea how much trouble I am in? If this funding doesn't hit, the bridge loan defaults. They will take the car. They will take the equipment. They should, I said. It was bought with stolen money. Cole's face turned a violent shade of red. He stood up, knocking his chair back. You think you are so smart. You think because you went to some fancy school you are better than us? You are nothing without this family. Mom made you. I made you. You didn't make me, I said, my voice cutting through his volume like a laser. You stole from me. You impersonated me. And you just confessed to it on a recording. Cole froze. What? I am recording this. Cole, I said. I have you on tape admitting that Mom's medical withdrawal was a fake leverage tactic. I have you admitting to the credit cards, and I have your signature on a document acknowledging the fraud. He looked at my bag, then at my face. For a second, I thought he was going to lunge across the table. His hands curled into fists. The veins in his neck stood out. Give me the phone, he hissed. No. I said give me the phone. He took a step toward me. The barista, a large man with tattoos up his neck, looked up from the counter. Everything okay over there? Cole stopped. He looked around. People were watching. He realized he was in public. He realized he was losing control of the narrative. You are making a mistake, Cole said, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You are declaring war on your own blood. You think you can walk away? You think you can just hide in your apartment? We know where you live. Isla. We know everything about you. You know my social security number, I said, but you don't know me. Not anymore. I turned and walked out of the coffee shop. I didn't run. I walked with the steady, measured pace of someone who had the evidence in her bag. As soon as I was around the corner, I leaned against the brick wall of a bookstore and exhaled. My knees were shaking. The adrenaline crash hit me hard. I had done it. I had the confession. But the look in Cole's eyes, that wasn't just desperation. That was hatred. I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording. File saved. Cole_confession_the grind. M4A. I immediately emailed the file to Marcus Thorne, Sarah Jenkins, and Sergeant Miller. Subject: additional evidence. Confession of motive and fraud. Body: attached is a recording of Cole Mitchell admitting to the conspiracy to withdraw me from school for financial leverage and admitting to the unauthorized use of my credit profile. Also attached is the signed admission of liability. I hailed a cab back to Marcus's office. I didn't want to go home yet. I needed to get the physical paper into his hands. By the time I left Marcus's office, it was late afternoon. We had spent hours transcribing the recording and integrating it into the filing package. The timeline was now a fortress of facts. 18 months ago, credit cards opened. 3 weeks ago, business loan application. Yesterday, withdrawal attempt and refund redirection. Today, confession. It was airtight. I went back to my apartment building as the sun was setting. The Latitude Apartments was a secure building. Or so I thought. Key fob entry, cameras, concierge. I walked into the lobby. The concierge, a young guy named David who usually smiled and asked about my day, looked serious. Ms. Mitchell, he said, waving me over. I am glad you are back. I tried to call you a few minutes ago. I was in a meeting, I said. What is wrong? There was a man here, David said, about 30 minutes ago. Said he was your brother. Said you had a medical emergency and needed your laptop from your apartment. He was very insistent. He said he had your permission. My blood ran cold. What did you do? I told him I couldn't let him up without your direct authorization, David said. He got aggressive. He started yelling that you were sick and he was your emergency contact. He tried to push past me to the elevators. Did he get up? I asked. My voice tight. No, David said. I called security. He took off before they got here. But Ms. Mitchell, he knew your unit number. He knew you were on the 12th floor. I looked at the elevator banks. Cole had come here, directly from the coffee shop. He knew I had the evidence on my laptop, Or he thought I did. He wasn't here to check on me. He was here to scrub the hard drive. He was here to destroy the digital trail before the police could seize it. "Do you have footage?" I asked. "Yes," David said. "We have him on the lobby cam and the exterior cam." "Save it," I said. "Do not delete it. The police will be here in the morning with a warrant for it." I went up to my apartment. I locked the door. I engaged the deadbolt. I wedged a chair under the handle. It was a childish gesture, but it made me feel slightly better. I walked over to the window and looked down at the street 12 stories below. It was dark now. The streetlights created pools of yellow light on the snowy sidewalk. I saw a car parked across the street, a gray sedan. It was idling. I couldn't see the license plate, but I knew that car. It was the car Cole had defaulted on 3 years ago, the one my parents had paid off to keep from being repossessed. He was watching. He wasn't going back to Illinois. He was sitting down there, in the dark, waiting. I picked up my phone. I didn't call the police yet. David said he had left the property, so there was no active threat for a 911 call. But I took a picture of the car. I sent it to Sergeant Miller. Message: "He is outside my building. Gray sedan. Watching the entrance." Miller replied instantly: "We are notifying City PD for a patrol drive-by. Stay inside." I sat down on the floor, away from the window. I pulled my knees to my chest. The game had changed. It wasn't about paperwork anymore. It wasn't about credit scores. My family was outside, in the dark, and they weren't there to take me home. They were there to silence the witness. I looked at my laptop. The blue light blinked in the darkness. I had the power to ruin them. I had the power to send my mother and brother to federal prison. And looking at the gray car on the street, I realized something terrifying. They knew it too. And a cornered animal is the most dangerous thing on earth. The war at home did not begin with a bang. It began with a whisper campaign that spread through the extended branches of my family tree like a fungal infection. 2 days after I had blocked their numbers, the messages started trickling in from my aunts in Wisconsin, my cousins in Florida, and even a second cousin I had not spoken to since I was 12. They were not asking for my side of the story. They were checking on the patient, Isla. "Honey, your mom says you are having a hard time distinguishing reality right now. Isla, please listen to your parents. The university is just a business. They do not care about you like family does. We are praying for your mental clarity." Tracy was working the phones. She was painting a masterpiece of narrative distortion, in her version. I was the victim of a high-pressure academic environment that had snapped my fragile mind. I was being manipulated by the university administration, who wanted to keep me enrolled to exploit my grant work. She, the heroic mother, was fighting a corrupt system to save her sick daughter. It was brilliant. It inoculated her against the truth. If I released the evidence of the fraud, she would simply point to it and say, "See? Look how paranoid she is. She thinks her own mother is stealing from her." I did not reply to any of them. I archived the messages into a folder labeled defamation. Then came the attempt to breach the firewall I had built around my academic life. I received an email from Dr. Evans, my heat transfer professor. The subject line was simply, "Regarding an unusual voicemail." He had attached an audio file. I clicked play. "Dr. Evans, this is Tracy Caldwell. I am Isla Mitchell's mother. I am terrified. Doctor, Isla is having a severe episode. She is manic. She might be dangerous to others in the lab. I need to know if she has been attending class. And I need you to send me her current schedule so I can come and stabilize her. The administration is blocking me. But as a mother, I am begging you." The voice was shaky, tearful, perfect. But Dr. Evans was a man who cared about thermodynamics, not drama. His email body was short. "Dear Isla, I received this voicemail this morning. I also received a notification from the registrar regarding a strict non-disclosure flag on your file. I have not replied to this woman, and I have blocked the number. I assume this falls under the security concern you mentioned to Dean Voss. I hope you are safe." I exhaled. The system worked. The hard lock Naomi Price had put on my file was holding. Tracy had tried to bypass the registrar by going directly to the faculty, playing on their human sympathies, but she had hit the FERPA wall. I forwarded the email to Marcus Thorne. Add this to the harassment file, but the real blow was yet to come. That afternoon, I was sitting in Marcus's office, reviewing the forensic report on the credit cards. The snow was falling heavily outside, turning the city into a blurred gray landscape. Marcus's receptionist buzzed in. "Mr. Thorne, there is a courier here for Miss Mitchell. He says it is legal service." Marcus looked at me. "Expecting anything?" "No," I said. Marcus went to the door and signed for a thick manila envelope. He opened it, scanned the first page, and his face went rigid. It was the same look he had when he found the shell companies. A mix of disgust and professional lethal focus. "What is it?" I asked. "Your father," Marcus said. "Glenn Mitchell." "What did he do? Sue me for emotional distress?" "Worse," Marcus said. He slid the document across the desk. "He has filed an emergency petition for temporary conservatorship." I stared at the bold letters at the top of the page. In the Circuit Court of DuPage County, petition for emergency guardianship of an incapacitated adult. Conservatorship, I repeated. The word felt heavy, suffocating. It was the legal equivalent of being buried alive. "He is claiming," Marcus said, reading from the affidavit, "that you have suffered a psychotic break, that you are squandering financial assets due to mania, and that you are a danger to yourself. He is asking the court to grant him immediate temporary control over your person and your estate to secure medical treatment and protect assets." I felt the room spin. Squandering assets? They are the ones stealing from me. "That is the strategy," Marcus said, his voice cold. "They know we are coming for them with the fraud charges. They are trying to preempt it. If they can get a judge to declare you incompetent before we file the criminal charges, then everything you say becomes the rambling of a lunatic. Your testimony becomes inadmissible. Your revocation of the loan papers becomes void." "They want to own me," I said. "Legally? They want to silence you," Marcus corrected. "If Glenn gets conservatorship, he can fire me. He can drop the lawsuits against himself. He can sign the loan for Cole's company. He can drain the trust." It was a nuclear strike. It was so cruel, so thorough, that it took my breath away. My father, the man who taught me how to ride a bike, had signed a document telling a judge I was too crazy to be free, just so he could cover his wife's crimes. Can they do this? I asked. Can they actually win? In a normal situation, with a convincing parent and a fake doctor's note? Maybe, Marcus said. Judges err on the side of caution when parents claim a child is in danger. They might grant a temporary 72-hour hold. He stood up and walked to the window. But this is not a normal situation, because we have the timeline. He turned back to me. We are going to file an emergency objection. We are not just going to defend. We are going to expose. We will submit the credit report showing the theft. We will submit the recording of Cole admitting the medical claim was a leverage tactic. We will show the judge that this petition isn't about your health. It is about a $350,000 loan they need you to sign. It is a weaponized conservatorship, I said. Exactly, Marcus said. And judges hate being used as pawns in financial scams. We worked for the next 6 hours. We built a wall of paper. We drafted affidavits linking the timing of the psychotic break directly to the timeline of the loan application. We created a visual chart showing that every time I refused a financial request, their concern for my health escalated by the time I left his office. I felt drained, but I wasn't shaking. I was angry, and anger is a much better fuel than fear. The next morning, the university summoned me. It was not a disciplinary hearing. It was a strategy session. I walked into the conference room in the dean's suite to find Dean Voss, Mary Ann, the general counsel, Sarah Jenkins, and the chief of campus police. "Ms. Mitchell?" Dean Voss said. He was a tall man with a beard that made him look like a sea captain. "Please, sit down. We have been briefed on the conservatorship filing." "I am sorry," I said. I didn't want the university involved in my family's mess. The university is already involved, Sarah Jenkins said, tapping a folder. Your mother named the registrar as a witness in her petition. She claims the university is obstructionist. She has effectively sued us to get to you. We are not here to scold you, Marianne Voss cut in. She was standing by the coffee cart, looking as impeccable and terrifying as ever. We are here to coordinate. Campus police has upgraded the file, the chief said. Based on the footage from your apartment building, which we obtained this morning, and the attempt to enter your unit, we are treating this as aggravated stalking. We have contacted the city police. If your brother or father appears within 500 feet of your apartment or this campus, they will be arrested on site. Not just escorted off, arrested. Thank you, I said. And regarding the conservatorship, Sarah Jenkins continued, the university will be filing an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief. We will submit our logs showing that you have attended all classes, taught all labs, and maintained a 4.0 GPA during the time your parents claim you were manic. We will effectively testify that you are a model scholar. Why? I asked. Why go this far for one student? Dean Voss looked at me over his glasses. Isla, you are the Hartwell donor. But even if you weren't, you are one of ours. And Redwood Lakes does not take kindly to people trying to use our administrative processes to commit bank fraud. Marianne walked over and placed a cup of coffee in front of me. She leaned down, her voice dropping so only I could hear. You are handling this remarkably well, she said. I don't feel like I am, I admitted. I feel like I am watching a car crash in slow motion. You are calm not because you are weak, Marianne said, her eyes locking onto mine. You are calm because you understand you are right. The chaotic person screams. The person with the truth just waits. The person with the truth just waits. I held on to that sentence. I carried it with me through the next 48 hours. I stopped sleeping. Sleep felt dangerous. I lived by checklists. Change banking passwords again. Check credit monitoring. Sign affidavit for Marcus. Eat a protein bar. Check the locks. I was a ghost in my own life, haunting my apartment and the engineering library. But for the first time in 26 years, I wasn't wondering if I was the problem. I wasn't wondering if I was being too difficult or selfish. The data was absolute. I was the target of a hostile acquisition. The climax came on Thursday morning. The hearing for the temporary conservatorship was held remotely via Zoom. I sat in Marcus's conference room, wearing a blazer, my hands folded on the table, on the screen. The judge sat in his chambers, looking bored and tired, in another square. My father and mother sat on their couch in Naperville. They looked terrible. Tracy was wearing no makeup, clutching a tissue. Glenn looked like he had aged 10 years. Their lawyer, a local family attorney who looked like he handled mostly divorces, looked nervous. Mr. Mitchell, the judge said, looking at the screen, you are asking this court to strip an adult woman of her autonomy on an emergency basis. That is a high bar. You claim she is medically incapacitated. She is, Your Honor, Glenn said, his voice cracking. We are just trying to save our daughter. She is not herself. We have submitted a letter from her physician, their lawyer added. Exhibit A. The judge looked at the paper on his desk. Then he looked at Marcus. Mr. Thorne, you have filed an objection alleging fraud? We have, Your Honor, Marcus said smoothly. We allege that the medical document is a forgery created by the petitioner's son, Cole Mitchell, to facilitate a financial crime. We have submitted metadata analysis proving the authorship. The judge frowned. He picked up the paper again. Counsel for the petitioner, the judge said. Do you have the original of this document? The one with the wet ink signature from Dr. Halloway? I have a digital copy, Your Honor. The family lawyer stammered. Mrs. Caldwell received it via email. I am looking at the stamp, the judge said, squinting. It says MD, but Dr. Halloway is a DO. A doctor of osteopathic medicine. I know him. He treated my brother. He is very particular about his credentials. Silence filled the digital courtroom. I watched my mother's face. The grieving mother mask slipped. Her eyes darted to the side, looking at someone off camera. Probably Cole. "Mr. Mitchell," the judge said, his voice dropping an octave. "Did you or did you not obtain this document directly from the physician's office?" My wife handled the paperwork," Glenn mumbled. He threw her under the bus instantly. "Mrs. Mitchell?" the judge asked. Tracy froze. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked at the screen, at me. She saw me sitting next to a high-powered forensic accountant, looking calm, looking strong. "We just want her home," Tracy whispered. It wasn't an answer. It was a plea. "That is not what I asked," the judge snapped. "I asked for the provenance of this document. Because if you submitted a forged medical instrument to my court to secure a guardianship, I will not only deny this petition, I will refer this entire recording to the district attorney." Tracy started to cry. But these weren't the manipulative tears of the dean's office call. These were the tears of a woman who realized the walls were closing in. "We don't have the original," the lawyer admitted quietly. "It was provided to us by a third party. Motion for emergency conservatorship denied," the judge said, slamming his gavel down. "And Mr. Thorne, you said you have evidence of financial motive?" "I do, Your Honor," Marcus said. "We are filing it with the state prosecutor today." "Good," the judge said, "because this smells like a shakedown. Petition dismissed with prejudice." The screen went black. I sat there in the silence of the conference room. My parents were gone. The threat of legal slavery was gone. "They didn't have the original," I said softly. "Because it never existed," Marcus said. "They thought a PDF and a tearful story would be enough. They underestimated the scrutiny." He closed his laptop. "Isla. That was the last card they had to play. They tried to break into your house. They tried to break into your bank. They tried to break into your legal rights. They have failed 3 times. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now?" Marcus smiled. But it wasn't a happy smile. It was a grim one. Now the prosecutor opens the file. Now the dominoes fall. I looked out the window. The snow had stopped. The city looked clean, sharp, and cold. I had won. I was free. But as I gathered my things, I realized that freedom had a price. I was an orphan now, not by death, but by verdict. I walked out of the office, ready for the end. The forensic accountant, Marcus Thorne, did not look at me when I entered his office 3 days later. He was staring at a spreadsheet that was projected onto the wall. A sprawling map of numbers that looked less like a financial report and more like an autopsy of a crime scene. "Revenue," Marcus said, pointing a laser pointer at a column of figures. "That is a specific word. Isla, in the accounting world, revenue means money earned from the sale of goods or services. It implies value creation." I sat down, placing my bag on the floor. "And Ridgecrest Concepts?" "Ridgecrest Concepts has 0 revenue," Marcus said. 0. They have not sold a single unit of logistics software. They have not consulted on a single supply chain project. There is not 1 cent coming in from a third-party client. "Then how are they paying the office lease?" I asked. "How is Cole paying for that suit? How did they pay for the website design?" Marcus moved the laser pointer to a column marked Inflow. "You," he said. I looked at the screen. The lines were color-coded. Every single deposit into the Ridgecrest operating account, every transfer that Cole had called seed capital or investor liquidity, traced back to a source that bore my name. $4,000 from the Chase Sapphire card, Marcus recited. $6,000 from a cash advance on the Amex. $10,000 from a personal loan issued by a fintech app that verifies identity via a simple photo upload of a driver's license. "It is a Ponzi scheme," I whispered. "But the only investor is me, and I didn't know I was investing." "It is worse than a Ponzi scheme," Marcus said. "It is a parasitic loop. They draw credit in your name, deposit it into the company account, call it revenue to make the books look solvent, and then use those fake books to apply for bigger loans in your name. They are inflating a balloon with your own breath. Isla. And when it pops, you are the one who suffocates. He clicked to the next slide. This one showed a map of the local area with IP address. Pings. We subpoenaed the bank for the access logs regarding the electronic signature on the fintech loan, Marcus said. The loan was signed 2 months ago. The signature timestamp is 7:45 in the evening. I was in the lab that night, I said immediately. I was running a simulation on heat exchanger efficiency. I have the logs. We know, Marcus said, because the IP address that signed the document is located at a residential address in Naperville, 124 Maple Drive. My parents' house. But here's the twist, Marcus said. His voice dropped, losing its professional detachment for just a second. We expected Cole. We expected Tracy. But look at the co-guarantor field on the second page of the loan agreement. He zoomed in. There were 2 signatures. The first was the forged Isla Mitchell. The second was a real, wet ink signature. It was shaky, the handwriting of a man who was tired, but it was authentic. Glenn Mitchell. I stared at the screen. The air left my lungs. My father. For the last week, I had told myself a story. I had told myself that Tracy was the mastermind, the manipulative force, and that Cole was the greedy beneficiary. I had told myself that my father was just a passenger. Weak, yes, passive, absolutely, but not a criminal. I thought he was just a man who wanted a quiet life and did whatever his wife shouted at him to do. But a signature is not passive. A signature is an action. He knew, I said. My voice sounded brittle. He didn't just look the other way. He signed it. He co-signed a loan with me, knowing I wasn't in the room, knowing I hadn't agreed to it. He validated the fraud, Marcus said gently. By signing as a co-guarantor, he effectively vouched for the authenticity of your signature to the bank. He told the lender, "Yes, my daughter is here, and she agrees to this." I felt a tear slide down my cheek. I brushed it away angrily. He filed for conservatorship to protect himself. If I am declared crazy, his signature on that fraudulent loan looks like a desperate father trying to manage a sick daughter's finances. If I am sane, he is an accomplice to grand larceny. Exactly, Marcus said. And that is why we are going to bury them. The next 48 hours were a blur of aggressive legal maneuvering. The timeline we had built was no longer a theory. It was a steel cage. The University of Redwood Lakes officially entered the fray. Sarah Jenkins sent over a sworn affidavit from the registrar's office, accompanied by the raw server logs. The document was devastating in its precision. It showed the login attempt, the password reset utilizing the security questions, and the upload of the medical file. But the kicker was the refund request. The university confirmed that the bank account number provided for the tuition refund did not match any account ever used by Isla Mitchell to pay fees. It matched a joint checking account held by Tracy and Glenn Mitchell. It was theft, attempted in broad daylight. Tracy tried to run, not physically, but socially. She tried to pivot. I was in the library when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was local to my hometown. I let it go to voicemail, but then a text came through. Isla, it is Mrs. Gable. Your mom is at my house. She is hysterical. She says there is a big misunderstanding with the lawyers. She wants to just sit down with you. No courts, just coffee. She says she can explain the dad thing. Please, honey, call this number. Mrs. Gable was my childhood piano teacher, a sweet woman who made excellent cookies and had no idea she was being used as a human shield. I stared at the phone. Tracy was desperate. She knew the conservatorship petition had failed. She knew the fraud investigation was heating up. She was trying to get me into a room without lawyers so she could use the old weapons, guilt, tears, the family first mantra. I typed a reply. I didn't address Mrs. Gable. I addressed the woman breathing over her shoulder. Tell her to talk to my lawyer. Any further attempt to contact me through third parties will be added to the stalking indictment. I hit send. Then I blocked Mrs. Gable. It hurt to do it. But I was not a person anymore. I was a plaintiff. Then came the deposition. Because we had filed for a restraining order and a civil suit for fraud, we had the right to depose the defendants. Cole was first. It happened in a conference room in downtown Chicago. I wasn't there physically. Marcus advised against it to avoid emotional outbursts. But I watched via a secure video feed from Marcus's office in Ohio. Cole sat across from a court reporter and Marcus's associate in Chicago. He looked terrible. The arrogant CEO from the coffee shop was gone, replaced by a man wearing a suit that looked like it hadn't been dry cleaned in a month. He was sweating. "Mr. Mitchell?" the lawyer asked. "Can you explain the business model of Ridgecrest Concepts?" "We are a logistics consultancy," Cole said. His voice was defensive. "We optimize supply chains." "Name one client," the lawyer said. "We are in the pre-launch phase," Cole said. "We are building the IP and the funding for this pre-launch phase," the lawyer said. "It came from where?" "Family investment," Cole said. "My sister and I, we had an understanding. She wanted to support the business. She gave me permission to use her credit profile to get things off the ground." "Permission," the lawyer repeated. "Was this permission written?" "It was verbal," Cole lied. "We are family. We don't write contracts for everything." "I see," the lawyer said. He slid a piece of paper across the table. "Then can you explain this email, sent from your account to your sister 3 days ago, where you stated, 'I needed that verification. The investors were ready. You just had to come home and sign a few papers?'" Cole blinked. That was regarding a specific new loan." "But if you had her permission," the lawyer pressed, "why did you need to trick her into coming home? Why did your mother need to impersonate her to the university to force a withdrawal? Why did you forge a doctor's note claiming she was psychotic?" "I didn't forge anything," Cole shouted. "We have the metadata." "Mr. Mitchell," the lawyer said calmly, "we know the file was created on your MacBook. We know the user account was Cole Admin. Are you denying you own that computer?" Cole looked at the camera. He looked trapped. He looked at his own lawyer, who was staring at the table, realizing his client was perjuring himself in real time. I was just trying to help her," Cole stammered. "She was stressed. We thought, if the business took off, she wouldn't have to worry about school." "So you stole her identity to save her from her PhD?" the lawyer asked. "It wasn't stealing," Cole yelled. "It was borrowing. I was going to pay it back. Once the Series A funding hit, I was going to pay off all the cards. She wouldn't have even known. I watched the screen. There it was, the confession. He didn't see me as a partner. He saw me as a resource to be mined. He thought he could strip mine my credit history and fill in the holes later with imaginary millions. The deposition ended an hour later. Cole had contradicted himself 6 times. He had admitted to creating the medical document. He had admitted that I had not signed the loan documents in person. The conservatorship petition was officially dead. The judge had not only dismissed it, he had forwarded the file to the district attorney's office with a recommendation for investigation into perjury. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. That night, I walked to the center of campus. It was late, almost midnight. The snow had stopped, and the sky was a deep, bruised purple. I stood in front of Hartwell Innovation Hall. The building was dark, save for the emergency lights that cast a soft glow on the glass atrium. I walked up to the dedication plaque near the entrance. It was simple, dedicated to the future of clean energy. It didn't have my name on it. It didn't have Aunt Evelyn's name on it. We had chosen anonymity because we didn't want the accolades. We wanted the work. I traced the letters with my gloved finger. I remembered the day Aunt Evelyn called me into her study. I was 22, just starting my master's. She was dying, though she hadn't told anyone else. "Isla," she had said, her voice raspy but sharp. "Your parents are good people in their own way, but they are small. They are terrified of the world, and they want you to be small too so they don't feel left behind." She had handed me the portfolio of the trust. "This money is not for buying things," she had told me. It is for buying distance. It is for buying the right to say no. Money is not for asking permission to live. Isla. It is the power to build the room you want to sit in. I looked at the massive glass structure rising above me. I had built this room. I had built a legacy of science and progress, and my family had tried to declare me insane because they couldn't conceive of a world where I was powerful. They wanted me to be the little girl who needed them, because if I didn't need them, who were they? My phone buzzed. It was Marcus. Update. The final hearing for the civil fraud case and the permanent restraining order is set. The judge expedited it due to the criminal implications. It is next Friday. Next Friday. I looked at the university calendar on the digital display in the lobby. Next Friday was the Founders' Gala, the day the dean had scheduled to finally, officially reveal the identity of the mysterious Hartwell donor to the Board of Trustees. It was a collision course. In the morning, I would be in court, watching my family be dismantled by the legal system. In the evening, I would stand on a stage and be recognized as the most powerful woman at the university. I texted Marcus back. I will be there. Make sure the settlement offer is off the table. We go to trial. I looked at the building one last time. Okay, Aunt Evelyn, I whispered to the cold air. Let's show them what big looks like. I turned and walked back into the dark, leaving the ghost of my family behind. The girl who asked for permission was gone. The donor was ready for her close-up. The courtroom in the Franklin County Courthouse was smaller than I expected, but the air inside was so thick with tension you could almost taste the metallic tang of adrenaline. It was Friday morning. The hearing was technically a civil proceeding regarding the restraining order and the fraud allegations, but because of the criminal referral from the family court judge, the room was packed. There were representatives from the district attorney's office, the university's legal team, and sitting in the back row like a vulture waiting for a carcass, a reporter from the local paper who sniffed a scandal. I sat at the plaintiff's table next to Marcus Thorne. My hands were folded on the oak surface. I was not shaking. The shaking had stopped the moment I realized my family was not a family, but a syndicate, on the other side of the aisle. They filed in. Tracy entered first. She was wearing a soft beige cardigan and a pearl necklace, the costume of the suburban martyr. She looked fragile, her eyes rimmed with red, clutching a handkerchief like a prop. It was a performance designed to make the judge see a heartbroken mother rather than a felon. Glenn followed her, his head low, refusing to look at anyone. He looked smaller than I remembered, his shoulders hunched under the weight of the co-signed loan documents that were currently sitting in an evidence box on the judge's bench. And then there was Cole. He walked in with a strut that was entirely unearned. He was wearing the same shiny suit from the coffee shop, trying to project the image of a misunderstood entrepreneur. He scanned the room, saw me, and gave a tight, condescending nod. He still thought he could talk his way out of this. He still thought this was a misunderstanding that could be fixed with a smile and a promise to pay it back later. "All rise," the bailiff bellowed. The Honorable Judge Patterson took the bench. He was a stern man with reading glasses perched on the end of his nose and a reputation for hating time-wasters. "We are here regarding the matter of Mitchell versus Caldwell." "Mitchell and Mitchell," the judge said, shuffling the thick file in front of him. "Allegations of fraud, identity theft, and harassment. Mr. Thorne, you may proceed." Marcus stood up. He didn't use flowery language. He didn't raise his voice. He simply laid out the timeline like he was unrolling a blueprint. "Your Honor," Marcus began, "this case is not a domestic dispute. It is a systematic financial extraction operation executed over 18 months. It began with the opening of unauthorized credit accounts. It escalated to a fraudulent business loan application using the plaintiff's identity, and it culminated 4 days ago in a criminal attempt to strip the plaintiff of her legal autonomy to facilitate further theft." Marcus pointed to the projection screen. "At 9:15 in the morning," Marcus said, "Tracy Caldwell impersonated Isla Mitchell to initiate a university withdrawal. At 9:30, she attempted to redirect a tuition refund to her personal account. At 10 o'clock, Cole Mitchell accessed the plaintiff's credit file to check if the freeze had been lifted. At 11:42 that night, A forged medical document was created on a computer registered to Cole Mitchell. The lines on the screen connected. It was a perfect circle of greed. Objection. The family's lawyer, a new one, better than the divorce attorney but clearly out of his depth, stood up. These are circumstantial connections. My clients were acting out of concern for their daughter's mental health. The financial maneuvers were administrative errors in the heat of a crisis. Administrative errors, Judge Patterson repeated, his voice flat. Let us hear from the university. Sarah Jenkins, the general counsel for Redwood Lakes, stood up. She walked to the podium with the authority of an institution that managed billions of dollars. Your Honor, Sarah said, the university has confirmed through server logs that the withdrawal request was made from an IP address in Naperville, Illinois, while Ms. Mitchell was physically present in a lecture hall in Ohio. We have also confirmed that the medical documents submitted were fraudulent. And regarding the claim of mental incapacity, the judge asked, the defendants claim Ms. Mitchell was manic and unstable. Sarah paused. She turned to look at Tracy. It was a look of pure, professional devastation. Your Honor, Sarah said clearly, the university rejects that characterization in the strongest possible terms. Ms. Mitchell is not only a doctoral candidate with a 4.0 grade point average, but she is also a primary stakeholder in the university's financial governance. Tracy looked up, her brow furrowing in confusion. I am authorized by the Board of Trustees to read the following statement into the record. Sarah continued. She opened a leather folder. As of this week, the university wishes to formally recognize Isla Mitchell as the sole trustee of the Hartwell Family Trust. The room went silent. I saw Cole freeze. I saw Tracy's mouth open slightly. Ms. Mitchell, Sarah read, has personally directed the donation of $4.8 million to the university over the last 3 years. She is the financier behind the Hartwell Innovation Hall. She fully funds 5 recurring engineering scholarships. She is, for the record, the university's biggest donor of the decade. The silence that followed was not empty. It was heavy. It crashed down on the defense table like a falling beam. Tracy went pale. Not the fake pale of her victim makeup, but a ghostly, bloodless white. She stared at me. Her eyes were wide, processing the impossible math. She had tried to steal $40,000 of tuition money from a daughter who had given away nearly $5 million. Tracy whispered, loud enough for the front row to hear. She has money? It was the only thing she heard. She didn't hear scholarship. She didn't hear innovation. She heard millions. Judge Patterson slowly took off his glasses. He looked at Tracy with an expression of profound disgust. Mrs. Caldwell, the judge said, you stood before a family court judge 3 days ago and claimed your daughter was incompetent. You claimed she couldn't manage her own affairs. You claimed she was a danger to herself. Tracy didn't answer. She couldn't take her eyes off me. She is managing a multi-million-dollar trust, the judge barked, his voice rising. She is building university wings. And you were trying to have her institutionalized so you could steal a tuition refund? On what planet did you think this would work? I didn't know, Tracy stammered. Your Honor, I didn't know about the trust. She never told us. She lied to us. She protected herself from you, the judge snapped. And looking at the evidence, she was right to do so. The judge turned to the forensic evidence. Let's look at the money trail. Mr. Thorne? Marcus stepped forward again. We have subpoenaed the bank records of Ridgecrest Concepts. There is no revenue. The only inflows are cash advances from cards opened in Miss Mitchell's name and loans secured by her stolen identity. And here is the deposition from yesterday. He played a clip of the video. Cole's face appeared on the screens, sweaty and panicked. Lawyer. So you used her profile to secure the funding? Cole. I was going to pay it back. It was just bridge capital. Lawyer. Did she sign the documents? Cole. No, but we are family. Cole, sitting at the defense table, put his head in his hands. The arrogance had evaporated. He realized, finally, that family was not a legal defense against bank fraud. "The evidence is overwhelming," Judge Patterson said. "We have forgery, we have cyber intrusion, we have a conspiracy to defraud both a financial institution and a university, and we have a malicious abuse of the court system to file a false conservatorship petition." The judge looked at Glenn. "Mr. Mitchell, you co-signed that loan." Glenn looked up, tears streaming down his face. "I just wanted peace, Your Honor," Tracy said. "She said if we just got the business running, everything would be okay. I just signed where she told me to." "That signature makes you an accomplice to a federal crime, sir," the judge said coldly. The gavel did not bang. It rested on the wood, heavy and final. "I am granting the permanent restraining order effectively immediately," the judge ruled. 500 feet, lifetime duration. If any of the defendants contact the plaintiff, they go to jail." He paused, looking at the defense table. "Furthermore, I am referring this entire file to the state's attorney for immediate prosecution on charges of identity theft, wire fraud, and perjury. Bailiffs, please take the defendants into custody for processing." The sound of the handcuffs clicking was the loudest noise in the world. Tracy started screaming. Isla, tell them! I am your mother. You can't let them take me. We can talk about the trust. We can manage it together." Even as she was being arrested. She was trying to negotiate a cut of the money. She didn't want forgiveness. She wanted management rights. I didn't look away. I watched them. I watched Cole trying to explain to the bailiff that he was a CEO. I watched Glenn weeping quietly. I watched Tracy thrashing, her mask of civility completely gone, revealing the greed underneath. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just let out a breath I felt like I had been holding since I was 18 years old. "It is over," Marcus said quietly beside me. "No," I said, standing up and smoothing my skirt. "It is just starting." 6 months later, the auditorium was warm, filled with the hum of conversation and the smell of expensive coffee. I stood at the podium, adjusting the microphone. I was wearing a new suit, one that I had bought without guilt. "Welcome," I said. "Thank you all for coming to the annual Hartwell Innovation Symposium." The audience applauded. In the front row, I saw Dean Voss, I saw Marianne, and I saw Dr. Evans, who gave me a thumbs up. "For years," I continued, "the Hartwell Trust has operated in the shadows. We believe the work should speak for itself. But I have learned recently that silence can sometimes be mistaken for weakness. I have learned that owning your name is the most important engineering project you will ever undertake." I looked out at the sea of faces. Students who were there on scholarships I had funded, researchers who were building the future on grants I had approved. "Today," I said, "I am proud to announce the expansion of the Hartwell program. We are doubling the number of full-ride scholarships for students from low-income backgrounds who are first-generation college attendees. We are building a safety net so that no student ever has to choose between their education and their survival." The applause was thunderous. I had defended my dissertation 3 weeks ago. I was officially Dr. Isla Mitchell. The job offer from North Star Aeronautics Group was sitting on my desk. A senior lead engineer position designing propulsion systems for the next generation of orbital gliders. It was a dream job, but the real victory wasn't the job. I walked out of the auditorium after the speech. The summer air was warm, but my mind drifted back to the winter. My parents were currently out on bail, awaiting trial. The legal fees had drained their retirement accounts. They had to sell the house in Naperville, the house where they had plotted to steal my life, to pay for their defense. Cole's business had collapsed the moment the fraud investigation froze his accounts. He was facing a minimum of 5 years. Tracy was looking at 7. They sent letters sometimes. I never opened them. They went straight into a box marked, "Return to Sender." I walked across the green campus toward the Innovation Hall. It was late evening now. The sun was setting, casting long, golden shadows across the glass facade. I swiped my badge at the entrance. The doors slid open with a soft hiss. I walked into the atrium. It was empty. silent and majestic. The steel beams soared overhead, crisscrossing like the bones of a giant leviathan. I sat down on a bench facing the dedication plaque. For years, I had thought I was the broken part of the family, the one who didn't fit, the one who was too cold, too focused, too ungrateful. I had let them define my value. I had let them treat me like a spare part they could harvest whenever they needed something. I looked at the plaque. I had finally ordered a new one. It had been installed yesterday. It no longer said, "Dedicated to the future." It read, "Hartwell Innovation Hall, established by Dr. Isla Mitchell, for those who build their own foundations, outside the glass." The first leaves of autumn were drifting down, but in my memory, I saw the snow from that night. The night I decided to fight back. My phone was silent. No frantic calls, no guilt trips, no phantom vibrations. I was alone, and for the first time in my life. Alone didn't feel lonely. It felt like ownership. My family had wanted to turn me into a tool, a credit card, a signature, a nurse, a servant. They wanted to use me to build their flimsy castles, but they forgot one thing. I am an engineer. I don't just endure the pressure, I calculate it, I redirect it, and when the structure is unsound, I don't patch it up, I condemn it. And I build something better in its place. I stood up, the heels of my boots clicking on the polished concrete floor. I had a flight to catch in the morning. North Star Aeronautics was waiting. The future was waiting. I walked out into the cool night air, leaving the empty hall behind, glowing like a beacon in the dark. Thank you so much for listening to this story of betrayal and justice. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. Please drop a comment below with your city or country. Let's see how far our community reaches. If you enjoyed seeing Isla take back her power, please subscribe to the Monica Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and hit the like button to help this story reach even more people who might need a reminder that they are the architects of their own lives.